Lulled into a false sense of security, he optimistically started the stream as normal, hoping that nothing would crash or break today as it did a lot last week. Welcome aboard, folks. How you doing today? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. Today we're going to do a build lab about Zephyr's Jetstream, or basically like making the projectile speed of things really fast. Jetstream is an augment for Zephyr's Turbulence, or third ability. A bunch of stuff, but the main thing is that it lets her create an aura around herself that makes projectile speed faster based on strength for her and allies nearby. This means that you can scale projectile speed much more than you can otherwise. There are mods that increase projectile speed for weapons, but like not really compared to this, you know? You can maybe get like 40-60% speed. This lets you get like 300% speed. So a bit of a different order of magnitude. And on a previous stream, one of you recommended using it to boost the speed of the Helstrum. This is a robotics companion rocket barrage weapon, but the flight speed is comically slow. It's still kind of good as long as the rockets don't get like interrupted by terrain or something. It can do a lot of status. The rockets have a little AoE. We're going to talk about this weapon on its own merits shortly, because I think that it's good news mostly. This is probably going to get looked at in the companion rebalance kind of part 2, and it will almost surely be buffed, especially its damage. It currently does essentially no damage, but a significant amount of status. And that will be good things for this build. I feel like this is still going to be really fun and also probably kind of good without that. So I don't really care. I think we could just do it now, but certainly watch this space. That will probably be much stronger than it is currently in like 2 or 3 months. I don't know. Watch the updates and see if the stats change. Watch this, make it yourself, and then see if your Helstrum is doing more damage. I don't know. So yeah, let's get into it. As usual, you've got timestamps in the description if you watch it on YouTube, and we're going to organize it. I'm trying to keep it kind of consistent. We welcome people in. We do a little intro thing. We shoot the breeze, if you will, around the water cooler. Little overview of Zephyr abilities, though for this particular build lab, it's not as necessary as it is for some of them. Like, we don't need to thoroughly cover every single thing about Zephyr right at the front. If it comes up later, then we can get into it. We're mostly I'm planning to mostly do Jetstream and Turbulence shenanigans. And then we'll just get into it. As usual, usually the first half is like setting up build stuff, and the second half is going to be, you know, enacting it or playing around with it, iterating. Cool? Sound fun? I hope so. This is one of my last streams this year, so I hope that it will be a good one and be one of the first build labs to have the new thumbnail, which is exciting to me because we spend a lot of time working on this series. I've spent a lot of time wanting this series to be perfect in vain, and now it has like a nice piece of branding that represents the amount of like time and effort that you and I have put into it. So I think that's nice. Branding stuff can be a little frustrating. I'm sometimes problematically so like an ideas guy, and so the actual packaging of the thing looks quite mundane, but I've put a lot of effort into it. Sometimes I need to step back and say, just make it look nice. So I did. Anyway, welcome back, folks. Asymptomatic, welcome back. Synthrone, welcome back. Densoro, welcome back. Zip, it has been a while. Welcome back. It's just Zip. I recall a regular audience member, at least one, with a name including Zip, that was interested in the Warframe build discussions specifically. So I assume that's you, and you changed your username a little bit, or maybe it was this the whole time and it's just been a long time. Welcome back, I think. How you doing today? What's up? Zip, it's been a while. Do I know how long it's been? I want to say a year or two, maybe. Quite some time, meaning you may not have ever seen us do streams of anything else. But it's been like almost 3 years since I started doing that, so you probably have. Anyway, welcome back. Good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. It's been some time for me, but we have a Sublime latte and this incredibly weird Zephyr fashion that I slightly quickly modified. I realized the colors I was using, muted though they are, look pretty cool on the Zephyr Harrier skin. This skin is the default colors are very loud, which nothing wrong with that. Just to say that it may distract some people from. Ooh, we gotta get a little fancy, get a little bit of that lounge wear, but we're gonna go fast, you know? Yeah. I kind of like it. A very different tone from the sort of original skin, but as you all know, I couldn't possibly care less. I love mixing the like helmets and skins that don't like immediately match, but then trying to make it work. Definitely not done with this one, but it will do for now. I hope you'll agree. Oh my goodness, it's so good. That's insanely good. I'm not trying to toot my own horn about my latte, but since you asked, it's just really good. I recently started getting, there's a local farm here that does Jersey milk, Jersey cow milk. Jersey cows have, I forget exactly, but it's like a slightly different macronutrient content to their milk. I think it's a little more fat, maybe. That might be wrong. And it has like it's a little hard to describe because it's kind of subtle, but like a different taste. I want to describe it as a little bit custardy, or almost a tiny bit like a little bit more like ice cream, I guess. And it is common in ice cream. You might have seen ice cream that is, it's like vanilla ice cream, but it was sort of a little bit yellowish. Have you seen this before? That may have been made with Jersey cow milk. That does give it a certain distinct texture. I'm not an expert on this subject, but I know it. I had known of it and that it tasted a bit different. And good Lord, does it taste good in just like a simple cappuccino latte. Like there's nothing else to say about this. It's really good, but well, there is of course something else to say. My folks got my partner an espresso bean tasting set. So we have 5 different espresso roasts that we've been playing around with. It's kind of impossible to compare anything without other examples next to it. But we're not going to make like 5 lattes with each of the different roasts and then compare them. That's asinine. It would rather a lot of latte to drink as well. We're probably just going to make them into Americanos, basically black coffee, but we'll do like an espresso-like shot and then dilute it with water and then have 5 of those and taste them side by side. If you enjoy the taste of essentially anything where you could easily compare different options and you have not done comparative tasting with it, I think it's a real treat. You really might try it. It's a lot of fun, and it is shocking how much better at tasting things humans are when they have multiple comparison points. It is shocking once you've done that. It will be shocking to try this thing again, coffee, tea, mac and cheese, I don't know, whatever it is. It will be shocking to you to try this thing again without a comparison point after you've kind of like had the comparison point thing before, and notice how you cannot really tell the difference unless they're pretty different things. It's shockingly hard to tell the difference between like similar versions of a thing. Again, like types of coffee or tea. I gave cheese. I don't know. Mac and cheese was a weird example as an example point. It's amazing how bad I am, at least. I suspect you will experience this too, compared to when I have comparison points. But I think it's a lot of fun. That's been a real treat. I've done a good amount of comparative tasting this year. That was a whole thing. My partner and I were on a big kick doing comparative tastings for everything. I know that sounds bizarre that you would do a bunch of that, but that's what we did. Oh my word, it's so good. I can't even describe like what is so good about it. It's like if caramel but coffee. It doesn't have caramel in it. It's just the sugar and the taste of that Jersey cow milk. Or it's like a milkshake, but way lighter and more refreshing than a milkshake, but coffee. But then it's doing like a caramel, but like when coffee does caramel. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Not too much kind of getting into it stuff today, I don't think, folks. Not that it's bad to have a shorter intro, but we usually spend about 15 minutes doing an intro. And I'm not sure I have too much else to say. I do actually want to briefly talk about the updates that have been going on, just because they're here. Now, I just got off a whole kick about, I'm not a Warframe creator. I'm covering general build stuff, and Warframe is a notable example in there. And one thing that was a little frustrating to me at first is that this new operation requires that you use something in your clan. You have to like install this gargoyle thing in your clan to link it up to the other clans, essentially just for flavor, but you like kind of turn stuff into it as well, which I sort of get. It's sort of an interesting idea. I'll tell you my personal feedback, and this may just be me, it really might, and that maybe isn't worth listening to, but I do want to say my piece. I really don't want to have to be forced to take part in a community in a game. I would be very happy if hardly anything ever in any game required me to do things like with other people. And for what it's worth, I don't think it's just me for whom that's bad. I think you're forcing people you might not want to have to be forced to play the video game with to be forced to play the video game with other people. Maybe people who are not so nice, but they have to seek out other people now. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I really hate group events, but I'm just antisocial. You can ignore me, but maybe don't. I don't know. Here is the gargoyle, which is, I like how it has Fibonacci's head. Anyway, and I was annoyed by that, and I grumbly logged into Warframe when I was busy with something else, because I didn't want people who are focused on Warframe and are in the clan that we have for Warframe to not be able to play the event. And I logged in, and one of you did it for us. So I wanted to say thank you. I don't know who did this, but I thought it was nice that somebody set that up to like make sure that it was okay. I hope people can find it, but I guess there is like a cryptic message someone left, and there is a marker on the map technically, so I guess it's fine. Anyway, I just wanted to say where I was with that. I have been way into like how long games take to keep up with this year. On the stream, we mostly cover games that are kind of an ongoing experience with new build options releasing over a unit of time, right? So Genshin Impact, Warframe, Limbus Company, Arknights. Hades really isn't like that, but we've played a lot of Hades on the stream. Those are the 5 games we've played the most by far on the stream. And mostly it makes sense on a stream, I think. If you're going to focus on talking about builds, it makes the most sense to cover the games that are like ongoing build making experiences. Don't you think? And or the roguelike gameplay loop. And so the result of that is that, yeah, it's keeping up with the games, but I mean, if you play all the games that are on the streams, because you like the streams that we put on and you want to follow along, that's like 3, 4, 5 games that you're following along with. Is that fully manageable from a time perspective if you like don't do this for a living? And the answer is mostly yes. You know, I think Limbus Company and Arknights have scored very high this year. For you get a very, very good build making experience, really interesting, inspired, different, fun, simple parts that combine into complex things, great build systems that you can play with like a normal human being amount of time. You do not have to have like a stupid amount of free time and play no other games, which will make you less happy and have less fun than if you get stuck with one game. And yet the games are in-depth offerings, not super light offerings, just because they like don't take that much time to do dailies or whatever. You know, they don't stamp their foot and demand your time. Genshin Impact and Warframe, on the other hand, have mostly disappointed me in this regard. I think that it's like sort of fine. You could argue it's kind of good. Warframe is weird because it's like there really isn't any like light piece of content you could get done really quick to get rewards, and therefore you're not missing out if you don't have 15 minutes every day, but instead you're missing out if you don't have like an hour every day. But I guess it's just not as punishing. It's kind of in a weird place. But then Genshin Impact has it's a whole other can of worms, and I think isn't doing a great job respecting the player's time with mostly its events, but that's a topic for another time. I don't know. I mean, I think that Warframe can be a little tricky, right? Like, I'm definitely in a weird position because as part of the Warframe creator program, I get to bypass the biggest roadblock to enjoying like new build options with a new update. With the Warframe creator program, I get kind of a sample of the new stuff in the update. Generally new mods nowadays, though it wasn't always like that. That's a recent change that I think is very good. Default versions of Warframes, usually with their collection, which means the Syandana and like the weapon they ship with. So Corvex in this case, not Prime Access, but the normal version. Cosmetics, Neither here nor there in my opinion, but not bad to have. And a lot of Warframe creators are kind of like fashion creators, so it makes sense. This isn't just for creators like me. And then they've been doing arcanes, so you get one of the arcane. Now this isn't terribly significant on the surface, right? Like to max out most arcanes, you need like 21 copies of the arcane. But a couple of things. If you haven't looked at arcanes in a while, you may or may not be aware that they've changed the way that arcanes scale. Basically, they made it less, I guess, non-linear. It used to be that, so for example, this arcane, right? Let's look at a better example. How about this? So this arcane at unranked says kill an enemy affected by a magnetic status effect for a 20% chance to pull in enemies within an 18-meter radius. Now at rank 5, it says kill an enemy affected by magnetic for a 45% chance to pull in enemies in the same radius, 18 meters. Arcanes used to work more like unranked would be 20% chance to pull enemies in like a 3-meter radius, and that radius would ramp up as the chance ramped up over time. The result was that because both of the effects were getting stronger and they kind of multiply each other in a way, the arcane was garbage until it was like rank 4 or 5. Basically, it didn't really do anything until it was max rank. They generally, across the board, when arcanes scaled two ways like that, they removed the scaling for one of them. So you get the full 18-meter radius from unranked, but the chance still increases. This is good unranked. If you were using a weapon where this would activate, it is doing something unranked. Great. So having one copy of an arcane or like 5 copies of an arcane for rank 2 or whatever is much more meaningful than it used to be. A lot more meaningful. It used to be that they would be basically unusable until you had like 20 of them, which is unrealistic. But now you can have a handful and you are getting most of the effect, which is great. That's in line with the rest of the game. So I'm a big fan of that change. I think that makes a big difference. All of that being said, this is still a lot of arcanes, and a lot of them don't make a huge difference until you have like a lot going. This is a good example of one that while the gains are linear, it adds up fast. You know, if you don't have like rank 3 or 4 of this, it may not do anything meaningful for a while. You get it. Anyway, just something I wanted to comment on. I think Warframe is in kind of a weird place to keep up with. So I wanted to mention it. Calroga, welcome back. I missed you coming in a minute ago. And thank you, Calroga, for reminding me about Zephyr's jet stream with gunblades. I have in my notes to talk about, and we're going to get into talking about that stuff now, like set flight time weapons, or like weapons that they fire a wave and then the wave disappears after a set amount of time. So the Archiplasmor and similar weapons. The Strofa is a gunblade that does it. Those weapons fire usually like it's like a disk of energy is what the hitbox looks like, but it's like a wave. And then after, say, 2 seconds, the wave disappears. So you can modify its speed during that time to functionally increase its range. And other gunblades, like the Redeemer, have pellets, which I don't think the Redeemer has fall off, but we are going to talk about shotgun fall off range extension with flight speed, because that's a weird thing in Warframe, but it's actually pretty powerful when you have a lot. For sure. Thank you for saying that, Calroga. I might have forgotten the gunblade thing if you hadn't mentioned it. Good to see you, by the way. See you later. Thanks for chiming in. Ragnavar, welcome back, by the way. I didn't have too much else to say about the update at the moment, but you were commenting a little bit on the sort of ease of keeping up with Warframe, which I would like to hear about. You said 80%-ish of Warframe is really easy to keep up with to you. But stuff like Archon shards can just put you behind in a way that means people with less time have less of the thing to play around with, and that can put people off. I don't really have the shards to make the 3 new colors, so I've been running Netra cells to try and get more, and not getting many, but still some. But other players might just not bother and miss out. I agree. I think that the phenomenon you're hitting on, to put it in my own words, if this is what you mean, is that a lot of the time if you fall behind on something, it feels like to have enough of it to be able to engage with the system would take so much catching up that it's just impossible, and so players don't even try, when it could be fun to have a little bit of it. I think they have kind of called to this. There were some... I think it was just Twitch drops, which maybe isn't how I would have done it, but it's a lot better than nothing, where they gave out some Archon shards. Like you could get like a handful of them without doing any of the content. So the idea was that you would try the system and hopefully want more, and then just like get a few more maybe. But I can tell you, as someone who preaches from the rooftops not to worry about completionism, it still bothers me to not be able to kind of fill out most warframes, right? It still feels messy and sort of unfinished in a vaguely stressful, even though it shouldn't be, but vaguely stressful kind of way. Maybe this feels touchy-feely, but I think this is what this kind of thing is. To not be able to complete full sets of Archon Shard builds. To this day, I do not believe I have slotted a single Archon Shard into any warframe build, not because I haven't thought of places to use them, but because I have so few that I feel anxious about using the few I have in case I want to use them, and I feel intimidated by the time investment it would require to, like, get more of them, to use more of them. Yet, in theory, I really like the idea of this system. It just feels kind of impractical to keep up with, to me. I think that's a real issue. I do think Warframe deserves a bit of slack here. Warframe developers, you are not exactly the only game that does this, right? Of course. This is kind of a problem that I've been really focused on in the past year about build systems in games in general. Most games are not using builds as a means to an end. They're not really the core part of the game. They're just kind of like a thing you can do while the rest of the game is happening, almost like a distraction or a side attraction. Something to occupy you between the game, basically. And that means that usually unlocking the pieces for the build is your carrot to, like, go play the rest of the game, which is good if you want to play the rest of the game, but not good if you want to make builds, because you have to do the rest of the game with no build options to get the build options. And Warframe is not the only game where that's a problem. It's just a game where the build options are a lot cooler than in other games, but it is still a problem, in my opinion. Really, the way this would change would be to have a whole new paradigm of making games that featured build systems. Games that structured getting the build options differently than the reward for the gameplay. Taking the premise that the game is about using the build options, not about getting the build options. This is one of many reasons, finally, that the games featuring, like, rolling for characters, as much as gambling microtransactions are a bad thing, there's no two ways about that. Weirdly, those games often do kind of well as build systems, because if you do get the new character, the new build option in the game, I mean, you don't have to spend any game time doing it, you just roll for the character, and if you get them, slam bam, you can play the new content with the new build option. Like, weirdly, that kind of makes them in a good place regarding this issue, but only because the competition is in an even worse place. So, dabba 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 dab. All of that being said, one of the best things in this new update, in my opinion, was the ability to kind of re-roll arcanes. I actually want to quickly show this just in case people who would want it didn't know about it, because I could have missed it personally. Like, I almost didn't know about this, and I looked a little closer and ended up finding it. You can now, once you've done the new Whispers in the Walls quest, you can now basically, like, destroy arcanes for a currency, which you can use to roll for, like, packs of arcanes, kind of like relic packs a little bit. I'll show you the vendor. It's at Lloyd, and you can click Arcane Dissolution, and you can see that you can pick from different, like, drop tables of relics. Now, another thing I think is good that they did is that they organized them by where the arcanes come from. So if you missed a piece of content generally, you were busy around the time that the Holdfast's stuff entered the game, right? You can then use the Holdfast's Arcane Collection packs to fill out specifically that part of your collection, or you don't like the Duviri content, specifically fill out that part of your collection. You get it. This is awesome in a few ways. I think it's great they added anything like this, the ability to kind of dust arcanes. It's great that they added it this way. Like, they really did some thinking about what would be a good way to kind of catch up the player. I just think this is really good. It costs a bit of credits, but not a huge deal. Particularly if you've played Warframe a while, you probably have a lot specifically of Steel Path Arcanes, so try dusting a bunch of those. You do it in your Orbiter at the Arcane Station. That's really great. So I might have mentioned that last week because I was so excited about it. That's really good. Thank you for adding that, developers. That is excellent. I really like that. In fact, it's so good that I'm just going to quickly Oh no, you do it at Lloyd. Okay, yeah, sorry, you do it at Lloyd. You click a button that says breakdown on the dissolution screen. Okay. Sorry, catching back up a little bit more. Ragnavar, you said, Warframe's big selling point for me is that I can just drop it until I next want to play it, and limited source build resources have no cap. Build resources that need heaps of standing to get fully kitted out will get in the way of taking a break. Netra cells are close to helping this issue, as you can theoretically get loads, but they need to reconsider putting standing purchasable melee arcanes and arcane adapters into the Netra cell rewards, even if you digital extremes think you have to have filler rewards. I see what you're trying to say. Yeah, I want to talk about the new Netra cell run content, because another thing that has kind of got on my radar this year, this has been a super long intro in practice, but that's okay. I think this topic is important. Another thing on my radar this year is the topic of weeklies as like a maybe better way to keep the player hooked into the game without taking an unrealistic amount of their time. Lots of you will know that what we've been doing on Friday streams lately anyway, Limbus Company's Mirror Dungeon run. You do one weekly run of the hard mirror dungeon and you get mad stacks of rewards. The best stuff in the game, everything you would want, and you just do one run of a super engaging, like properly challenging, build crafty, crunchy piece of content, and it just slaps. Like getting so much of the stuff in the game for just doing that one dedicated focus session for like an hour or two. Once a week, you just sit down and enjoy it, you get the best part, and then you're out. That's a masterpiece. Like, that's so good. I put Limbus Company as an honorable mention in my Game of the Year, Build of the Year thing video that I'm writing, literally just because of that. That is so good. I wish every single game on Earth had that thing. That was like an ongoing experience. I think Warframe is getting closer as well. Warframe added something recently that is like that, kind of. And I'm very excited for how that is going to go in the future, but we'll see. At the moment, I think the game is a little too large in scope for that to be like enough. The circuit is also sort of edging in the direction of doing that. That's not exactly weeklies, but it sort of is weeklies. Yeah, it's a decent time investment, but anyway, I'm very interested in that like whole area of Warframe. I think it's really good. It's much more sustainable if you want to like have a good life and play a healthy variety of games, but still keep up a lot with this game you really like. I think they've been doing really, really good work with that subject in the past year or so. Asymptomatic, you said about keeping up with these resources that are limited. The stance I take is it would be too late to farm X, like Archon shards, by the time I would want it, so have a few hours of my week. At least I have a dedicated co-op partner to sand the edges down a bit, even though I play solo most of the time. Indeed, that's another huge thing that I've been thinking about lately. This year has been the year of, wow, if you have a co-op partner, it changes a lot of this quite a bit. We talked a lot, mostly earlier this year, about how Warframe's balance level for the Steel Path is like sort of broken in that the way to see squads that are full are available on public doesn't really work. And so if you queue into a Steel Path mission, it's either basically going to be solo, in which case you can do it solo if you have a kitted out account, but you better have brought good stuff to do it with, or it's going to be kind of a pain. You can't just bring whatever, but you can't know if you can just bring whatever or not, because if it's in a full group, you can bring whatever if you have a pretty accomplished account. The difficulty level is not knowable and the range is too large. If you play with two people, every single time you have two people, masterpiece. Difficulty is chef's kiss, perfect. But you can't do that. Like, you can if you live with someone who plays video games all the time, which I do, but most people don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's not how the game works. A queue that made you run with two people, I doubt they would add that, but that would be very good. That has definitely been on my radar a lot too. Genshin Impact also came up this year because its build systems kind of change if you have a co-op partner. You field 4 characters on your team, but you can only have one on the field at once. If you play co-op, you split the team. 2 characters on the field at once, but you're swapping between only 2 instead of 4. It doesn't really make the game easier or harder. It like changes the game quite a bit. Pretty interesting. I am getting very distracted by the like spray from these shoulder plates, so I'm going to make that stop now before I lose my mind. Anyway, yes, I think that's very interesting indeed. Whoa, that's cool. But not right now. Stay focused. Put on different shoulder plate. What do I want here? I think that'll do for now. Yeah, I can get down with that for now. Indeed. Anyway, I just thought that was a good discussion worth having. This is sort of near the end of the year too, so there you go. Let's get into the Zephyr stuff. How about that? Yeah, like a looking for group type tool is sort of an interesting subject in this same bucket as well, right? Something that lets you say, you know, not just like a chat channel, but you say what type of experience you were looking for. Occasionally people do that, which is great and all. But again, I personally would go so far as to say, I don't think Warframe is that good of a game experience on the Steel Path unless you can play it that way. It's kind of frustrating to get the game to not be either way too easy or not way too hard if you don't want to bring something dedicated to do that mission solo. That's just not really working. I think that's actually a pretty big problem. I'm sort of surprised, but what would you even do about it? So I don't know. I guess I'm not surprised people aren't complaining about that more. They maybe are. I don't know. They're not. Let's do a split and talk about the Zephyr stuff. There's not too much to say in this section. Basically, we're going to focus on Turbulence, and of course, like a quick overview of Zephyr's kit, never a bad thing. But this is, like most of the build labs I've been into lately, kind of meant to be more focused on a specific piece, and then we radiate out from there. And that doesn't need to be any specific thing. Like, it could be part of a Warframe and a weapon, or just the weapon, or like a companion ability, or whatever it is. I would like to do focused ones. Now, for the sake of people being able to find the video, I probably will label them as if they're focused on like the game piece you would think of the name of. We did Genshin Impact for Furina, a build lab on Monday, and that one will be named like something about Furina because that will help people who are looking for it find it. But the real origin point of that build lab is really more like the Maritos Hunter artifact set that gives you a ton of crit rate if your HP goes up and down, and Furina enables that in a way no other unit does. And that was what we spent most of the actual time talking about. Maybe we'll call it Furina's Maritos Hunters or something. I am into build names as of the past few months. We'll talk about it more some other time, but think about that throughout this parlay. Everything is parlay throughout this video. I think this is mostly a Turbulence or Jetstream thing. So a basic rundown of Turbulence and Jetstream then. By default, this ability creates a wind shield around you that deflects projectiles. Now, it creates like a bubble, the radius of which is based on range. A point I always like to make with this is you don't need very much radius if you just want to be unable to be shot directly. But if you have a bit more radius, if you have the space in your build or you want to give it a little more radius, if I recall, it's between like 130, 160, around there, 160% maybe. Bombard rockets are like explosives, will not be able to fly close enough to you that their explosion will hit you, even if they explode right on the edge of the bubble. They'll get deflected, but I'm just saying if they were to hit a wall immediately too, or you're in very close quarters, even those types of rocket attacks will not be able to hurt you. I'm not sure if that matters that much. You have a shield gate. Anyway, just that exists if you care about that. It has a pretty long duration by default. It costs a modest amount of energy. No big deal. You can be meleeed, but Zephyr's passive makes her floaty, and it's not that hard to stay off the ground in Warframe, so I think that this makes you basically invulnerable. You basically cannot be hurt in any way, except for the ones that can still hurt you. Pretty straightforward. Not exactly a bad ability to have been using in the first place. Does it matter to beams? Wink in the gun, that's a good question. In the little movie, you can see it showing beam weapons, like from Corpus dudes, getting deflected, which, like, it would be pretty weird if that didn't happen in-game. But there are some types of weapons that this does not deflect. For example, to my memory, it doesn't deflect flamethrower type weapons. Like, there are some Grineer enemies that use flamethrowers, and it does not deflect those. Suffice it to say, in my experience, it deflects few enough weapons as exceptions. Like, there's few enough weapons it doesn't defend you against that it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you just kill those enemies when you see them, and you're not, for some insane reason, fighting like 50 Grineer Napalms, you know, which you won't be. You won't, it doesn't really matter, but you are good to ask. And yes, I believe it's correct that there are a few weapons that don't get deflected. I'm pretty sure beams do. It does show beams getting deflected, but I think that flamethrower weapons, while coded like beams, are actually a little different. And the last I checked, they will still hit you. That, I think, is how that works. But overall, it deflects almost everything. Very good question, but I don't think you have to worry too much about that part. And then Jetstream is where we go on from here. Should we pull it up big? I did set that up. Let's use it. Oh, hold on. Let's put you back in the center there, shall we? Jetstream, of course. It simply makes Turbulence also give a movement speed and projectile speed buff. Both of them scale with strength. They're both really big magnitudes at base, and they're both affected by strength. Yeah, very simple. I think pretty exciting. I've liked this mod for a long time, but we just keep getting more awesome things to use it with, so that'll be the starting point today. Robot Cloud, welcome back. You said I was just watching Limbo's build lab yesterday. I'm kind of down on those build labs. Do you think I shouldn't be? Like, I sort of feel like they're messy and incomplete, but life is messy and incomplete, man. Maybe I should have less of a stick up my ass about it. What do you think? Is it good to distinguish these from those, or am I just being a perfectionist and I should get over it and just treat them all as the same? What do you think? Robot Cloud and everybody else, if you want to chime in. This would mean things like giving them all the thumbnail treatment, putting them all in the same playlist. Are they meaningfully different in a way you all actually care about? They're different to me, but that doesn't matter. I'm not the one who's going to be watching them. Or is this basically the same thing? What do you think? You're not going to hurt my feelings, you know, lay it on me. Say you're being a self-centered idiot. There, it's the exact same thing. No one cares. Because I think them having custom thumbnails would make a big difference for discoverability. That's not my priority, but it has value. I mean, it's probably worth my time, like financially or whatever, you know. Anyway, let's start from scratch with the Zephyr build, though where I'm going to go with this, my opinion is it's not going to be all that surprising at first. I mean, I think you fairly clearly would benefit from some duration. You don't need much range, so I think narrow-minded is worth considering. And then strength. It's a lot of projectile flight speed and normal running speed for what it's worth. So I don't think it's so bad to go fairly hard on sprint speed and projectile speed here. Like doing a lot of strength, this feels like a good place for that. Growing power as an aura, for example, feels like pretty elementary in this spot. And again, I really like narrow-minded. I had done some testing previously to the effect that if you run narrow-minded alone, no cunning drift, you will get shot while using turbulence, but just the tiny, tiny bit of initial range from cunning drift is enough to make it so you don't get hit. So let's see if that's true. I won't add any more range and we'll get shot and see if we get shot or not. You get it. We'll leave that way for now. I'm pretty much just making the thing I had before, but that's what I think is a good idea, so that's what I recommend. Yeah, ability duration. So the base duration is actually kind of bad. I think I said it was okay before, and I didn't notice that was with like almost maximum duration. I don't like having to recast things that much, so like I will recommend building a lot of duration for sure. This is 50 seconds. That feels like sort of enough. You know, one of the weird things about duration is that the duration mods are quite skewed. You get a ton of it, and then you can add 2 more mod slots that give you barely any, you know, Augur Message and Constitution, which I'm increasingly considering really just not worth it. It's hard for me to imagine easily situations where those do enough by my evaluation. I think Transient Fortitude is nice here. We only lose probably like 5 seconds, yep, of duration on Turbulence for quite a substantial bump in strength. You know what the ability actually does, which I think is worthwhile. Now, efficiency, I think Streamline would be nice. I will enjoy Streamline, but I don't want to drop the duration from running Transient Fortitude. I mean, sorry, Fleeting Expertise. Same difference. I just think that's a lot of duration to lose for not that much of an efficiency gain for an ability that lasts a long time. Basic, you use it and it lasts for duration abilities like this. I rarely feel like this makes that much sense if the duration is kind of good, because the energy you save, you just have to cast the ability more times. So for stuff like that. And a lot of Zephyr's other abilities are also, like, I'm probably going to keep Tornado, and this ability is similar. It has a moderately long duration and then like a big casting cost. So I feel like Streamline accomplishes more than Fleeting Expertise. We will be talking, maybe in the second half, we'll see when, about how Zephyr's other two abilities are pretty spammable, kind of the opposite argument. I would consider running Fleeting Expertise normally. So what do you want to do there? But so far, I feel like this is a pretty functional shell for a build. This looks pretty good to me. I'm almost certain that I'm going to want Narrow-Minded, so I think I'm going to put a Polarity there as well, because it's going to save quite a lot of mod space and let me put kind of whatever I want in these spots. You'll notice I've so far completely thrown survivability in the trash. Again, if this is enough range, we should be impossible to shoot by almost every enemy in the game, and we just stay off the ground, and we won't get hurt. Cool. Okay, let's catch back up on chat and then fill out the rest of the build or see what else we want to add. Weapons that are good with Jetstream. I mean, right now this doesn't really do anything. It makes you pretty fast, I suppose. But 254% flight speed. Yeehaw! Yeehaw! Let's get in there. Get along, little doggies. Zip, you said a bit of here, a bit of there. Probably not really worth going back to those videos and doing something that's to them that's already out. Might be worth doing new videos on some of them, though. That was another question I had. We'll probably talk about this more next year, but I made a list of all of the Warframes that we have covered in the build labs so far, the Warframe build labs, which is a good amount of them, like about a fourth of all the Warframes. And I made a list of the Warframes I would like to cover soon, which that list was 12 Warframes that had not been covered yet that I would like to cover soon. That was 12. And then I looked at the first list of the ones we'd already covered, and I thought, how many of these do I have something new to say about now, more than the frames that aren't on either list? And the answer was most of them. We actually already did Hydroids because they reworked Hydroids since we did that build lab. It is useful to me to hear that you are up for redoing some of them relatively soon after they existed. I want to do that, but I think I was worried some people would say, oh, we just did, I don't know, Limbo or whoever. It was like a year ago, but still, you get it. Anywho, and just people were commenting more on the usefulness of the older build labs. Robot Cloud, you said, I like them. I do find myself skipping parts where you talk about side points away from the Warframe at hand, but the actual talking points in the build talk makes them the best build videos on Warframes. That's pretty high praise. I'm glad you like them. You won't hurt my feelings. Again, what types of side points are the most, in need of being able to be avoided to you? I have tried to structure the series a little bit more so that we avoid that stuff, but for example, this is like a minor tangent away from discussing the builds. I don't think that's so bad, like it is ultimately still a stream, but I want to make it as easy to use and watch as I can. I hope the timestamps kind of help. You can sort of skip around to parts you want. But I can definitely still do better, so I would like to hear more about that if you think there's something I could do that would be useful. And Asymptomatic, you said, I value chat as timestamps since 6 or so chapters are likely not to be in sync with the organic topic changes. Still not sure what kind of form that should take since the captain's native stream window does not include chat. Yep, we've talked about that before as well, and I agree that there's some further development to make on timestamps. I could just start going crazy with timestamps. That is hard, but it's not impossible to do. Like this little section, Do I want a timestamp just for this like 4-minute thing about what you would want in timestamps? Yeah, well, go ahead, vote, yes or no. Would you like that to be a timestamp? For this stream, that's biting off a bit more than I can chew, but I would like to think about that. Greater Sea and Feather the Crow, welcome back, by the way. I want to talk about weapons for Zephyr now, which I do think is a different timestamp. So now we could get into what are you using the flight speed for? We added 254% projectile flight speed. For what? Why? Some people, you may not be familiar with this, may be thinking that just doesn't do enough. Like, why? You make a whole build focused on that? We have other space to add other stuff in, of course, and we'll get to that later. But I hope I can convince you, if this is something you'll like, that there are a lot of powerful things you can do with increasing projectile flight speed. There's a couple kind of archetypes for this whole category of things will do a good thing with this weapon, so I'm going to talk about those first. The first one is in projectile, non-projectile shotguns. I want to make that point. This is always my like pet point about this subject, but I think it's cool and the game doesn't make it very clear. Fall off. This is a stat that a lot of shotguns have, and it means that they do less damage, you know, down to maybe 20% of their normal damage, if you shoot enemies past a certain range. The Corinth, and a lot of weapons that do not have projectile travel time, when you click the button, the bullets arrive instantly at the target location. Sometimes in coding, they're called hit scan weapons, have nevertheless been coded to like simulate having fall off range. If you give these weapons projectile speed, their fall-off range increases even though there is no projectile flight time. They're just like for flavor, basically. The weapon is more effective at short range because it's a shotgun, so if you increase the projectile speed, in universe it would make it have better range, so in the game's mechanics it makes it have better range. Like, I guess that's the best explanation I can give. So you can see that if I take off Fatal Acceleration, this weapon does not do its full damage out to as far of a range as before. Now, Fatal Acceleration, though, only gives you 40% projectile flight speed. What about having 250 projectile flight speed? You can imagine you can shoot shotguns at the range of a sniper rifle and they do their full damage. Do you want to do that? I do. Maybe you don't, but I do. I really do. So I'll show you that. But there's lots of examples. One that used to be pretty popular was the Tigress, because this weapon is actually surprisingly effective already at longer ranges, let alone if you actually make it do its full damage out to those ranges. So maybe I'll bring the Tigress. That's the classic one. But I think there's a lot of options nowadays. Okay, category number 2. These are weapons that have the... is it particle ram? Yeah. These are weapons in the kind of archiplasmor wave of energy defined flight time thing. Their projectile flies for a set amount of time and then it goes away. If you increase the flight speed, the projectile goes much further in practice. These are like sort of like shotguns. Many of them actually have the fall off stat as well. I think the archiplasmor doesn't. It does. Interesting. Huh. I didn't remember that way. But in any case, these are a little bit of an exception because they will literally not hit enemies without the flight speed. They have fall off, but that's kind of weird because the projectile disappears at the end of the fall off range. Like there is no more projectile once the fall off has depleted, pretty much. So flight speed makes these weapons range where they hit anything at all much further. And then they also do their full damage out to further range. You get it. And then another one that was mentioned, Greater Sea, you said, I vaguely remember the Quasis heavy attack knives being fun with Jetstream. Yes, so these are like homing knives, basically, and they have projectile flight time, so in practice, they get a deceptive range extension from the flight time. Yep. Another question that came up, Wink in the Gun, you said you could get some range out of your flamethrowers. I think so. So the Ignis and the Ignis and you mentioned the Atomos are not coded the same way. Exactly. The Atomos is a beam weapon, so it shouldn't be affected at all by projectile flight time. The Atomos you can increase the range of using beam length extension mods. The Ignis might be a little more complicated, or I might just not know. I believe beam extension mods affect the Ignis as well, but I don't remember what happens with projectile flight speed, so let's try it. You can likely equip the mod on them? No, maybe not. Huh. It's not hard to test. Let's try. You know, one of the good things about Turbulence, I'm known for being a whiner about testing on this stream. One of the good things about Jetstream and Turbulence is you get so much projectile flight speed, it's usually quite easy to determine whether it does something, you know? You're increasing the weapon's range. If it's affected by projectile flight speed, you're increasing the weapon's range by 250%. It shouldn't be that hard to tell if that's working or not. So a simple test will be enough to confirm that. That is a question I'm sure would interest other people too. Totally makes sense to quickly go check. But it probably doesn't. Wink in the gun, the Atomos is definitely a beam, and the Ignis is, I believe, a beam. The flamethrower weapons in Warframe are coded as like, it's like a pellet beam weapon, like a shotgun of little beams. The way it's coded is super weird. Or it's like a wiggly beam. I forget exactly how the Ignis is coded. But I believe that it looking like a beam is deceptive. So we'll check. Now, we'll save this for in just a minute, so let me take that off. We'll say I'm 100. Now, of course, I can't hit them from here. Turbulence, can I now hit them from here? I cannot. None. Oh. That feels longer than its normal range. That's really long range. Does it normally have that long range? Let's wait till it wears off and see if I can still hit. Can I hit that guy? I can. Please survive. Survive that damage, please. He's gonna... okay, he lived. Okay, wait 15 seconds and then we'll shoot again. That might just be the normal range. I have Sinister Reach on the weapon. Let's see what happens. That's just the normal range. Yeah. Pretty impressive range. Wow. What the hell? That's ridiculous range. All right, but that is just the normal range. The answer is no, but incidentally, put Sinister Reach on your Ignis. Jesus. That's awesome. Okay. While we're here, 2 seconds to show you the other weapons results, and then I'll catch back up on chat a little bit. So you can see that the Corinth, I mean, it's a hit scan weapon, and it will hit enemies from here. But it does basically no damage, right? If you use Turbulence, suddenly it does way more damage. Way more damage. The enemy took negligible damage before, and now it's killing these guys in 1 or 2 shots. So that is the flight time increasing the fall off, even though this weapon literally does not have projectile flight time. Particle Ram, this guy again, you can see if you've used the variants of the Archiplasmor before, they don't normally travel this far. I'll show you how far it goes without this effect active in just a sec, but you can see it will easily hit enemies over there. Super, super long range. And now it'll wear off and you'll see that it will go, well, not that far. A little less than half that distance. Yeah. The Feather, you said, does Jetstream make the alt fire of the Corinth more awkward since you'd have less time to trigger the explosion? Probably. Okay, that's a bit fast. So the Corinth alt fire, you fire a shell and then you can click again to explode it. You can see that I only barely have enough time to even click the button before it hits that wall and is out of bounds. If you wait less than a third of it, more than about a third of a second, you cannot explode the shell because it has gone out of bounds in this environment. It doesn't make it unusable. I'll do it as fast as I can. And you can see it explodes about right in front of me. That's if I hammer alt fire, mash, mash, mash. And it explodes right in front of me. So not the end of the world, but I wasn't really suggesting using the Corinth specifically. I just wanted to show you this as an example. Feather, I think you're right that for the most part, is probably a lot less practical. If you want to do anything other than use the Corinth Airburst right in front of you, it's going to be pretty difficult to judge that distance when the shell is moving that fast. So for the most part, I would say, yeah, it makes that worse. I'm going to make a note about that as well. Maybe not Corinth because too fast. Alt fire. It's a little fast. I mostly agree. Yes. Oh, right. The Colossus knives. Let's show that while we're here. Respawn these guys. And we're going to do a heavy attack, and you'll see that the knives will go very far. Well, they don't really home, though. They'll hit enemies from really far away. You see, I actually am killing a few enemies when the knife hits. So, do with that what you may. Personally, I think that's a little inaccurate. There are a number of weapons with this style of, it's like a throwing knife weapon when you do a heavy attack. So you could play around. I'm not super thrilled. A side note from me is that the gun blades do offer a few options that use the same mechanics. The Stropha, for example, is like an Archoplasmor, wave with set projectile time type weapon. So if you like that, this Stropha is a way that you can spam those waves from very long range. That won't hit this enemy from here, but then if I use Jetstream, it probably will. Yep. And you can heavy attack from quite a distance, very far away. Which I think is pretty cool. You can use it like a gun. It becomes like a proper firearm, which I really want. That really appeals to me. So I'm a big fan of the Stropha in this case, but the whole point of this is to show people a lot of options. So I'm very happy that Great to see you suggested the Colossus and the other like throwing knife fan weapons. But yeah, I don't think the Colossus knives have homing. I don't know what... I thought I remembered that there was a weapon like that did, but I don't know. That's Zaku's effect, right, because it's Zaku's signature. Another quick thing that I don't really remember, but I want to check. Not sure if this is really all that great, but I'm just interested, is whether the Za arcane that fires a like copy of the weapon is affected by the projectile flight time. My opinion is that this is not a very good effect, so I'm not sure I actually care that much, but I would like to see if it's affected. Doesn't really look like it to me. It doesn't look like it flies any faster than normal. Or more to the point, if that is the increased flight speed, that's not very fast, would be what I have to say. So that it might affect it, but I don't think that's like particularly exciting. Being in the air to use those attacks is good with Zephyr, so maybe you just want to use it anyway. Because you'll be off the ground and impossible to kill. The Stropha mostly gets my vote here, though. I just really like this weapon as well. Or maybe I'll use like a pellet-based gunblade, but I'm pretty sure these do not have fall-off. You could use the Chorophel. Yeah, this is a shotgun scythe thing. Kind of a Ruby parody from RWBY, that Ruby. It's essentially her weapon, though it's the other way around, sort of. It's been a while since I've seen that show. It's not quite the right way around, I believe, but, that's by the by. You can use this at quite some range. Big fan of this weapon. This weapon is awesome. It's like a freight train. I've been using gas on it. Okay, let's properly catch back up on chat. But yeah, that's like a little shotgun of ways to actually use the mostly shotgun enhancing flight speed. It's pretty cool, in my opinion. It lets you use close range weapons at basically as far a range as you want. And there's not really anything else in Warframe that does that. So I think it's cool. This is a simple Chorophel, like heavy attack focused build. Interesting. I was using gas on this. The damage is really high. I think generally in Warframe, we're at a point where you can get your damage to be extremely high. So using a status that makes it higher is sometimes unnecessary for me. The next thing I would want would be for it to hit in an area, which is what gas can do. Electricity, same difference, really. Gas lingers after they die, you know, they're not the same thing, but you get it. Cool. Okay, catching back up a little bit more. I had asked a little bit earlier about side topics and people's opinions about like tagging the video chapters. So for example, Robot Cloud, you said the side topics in the Limbo video, the Limbo build lab that you were watching, were about other games, and some of it's unavoidable because it's a stream, but you'd probably just skip over those things. Indeed, this has always been kind of a conundrum to me. It's like, on the one hand, casually answering the question is good, but on the other hand, people who are watching that specific stream very likely don't know about the other game. But then on the other hand, the whole purpose of me streaming these games this way is that I'm specifically talking about them from a build making perspective. And if I've done my job well, I intend it to be interesting if you like don't play that game, but not hearing about the game out of context. You know, I think the whole stream, like the Limbus Company streams we're doing on Fridays right now, you might have a good time even if you don't play and don't want to play that game, if you are interested in build system game design. Which, if you're not, I don't think you're going to enjoy most of what I make, because that's what a lot of it's about. But that doesn't mean that a comment unrelated to the game at hand, when we are not playing the game you maybe would be interested in, is going to make sense, right? That's quite hard. A lot of the time I've gone back and forth on what do I do if a question unrelated to the game at hand is asked. And I fully appreciate, I'm happy you mentioned, I agree mostly, that it's difficult for those to be followable. And in fact, it puts people off probably trying the stream that you really might like, because a comment about the game out of context is essentially impossible to enjoy or follow if you don't play the game. Anyway, and Asymptomatic, you said about adding more chapters. Too many chapters adds visual noise to the video navigation. Some of the videos I've seen have commenters and they add their own timestamps if there are none from the creator, but that balloons the directional cost of the video for unclear gain. On Twitch, I sift through chat manually and any given message jumps to the point in that VOD. Yeah, Twitch does allow you to do a few other things, like search for specific comments and then jump to that part of the video, which would be valuable if it could be brought to YouTube. But even adding, even if I were to add chat to the screen of my streams, that would not allow you to search for things in chat on YouTube. A way to do that would be cool, to import the chat feed from Twitch to YouTube, but I doubt we'll get something like that. Maybe there's an add-on for your browser? I don't know. Anyway, that's impractical, but... Okay, the Helstrum. This was kind of the central interaction that brought me to this topic personally anyway. I was trying to decide what frame would be fun to do, or what kind of starting point build idea would be fun. And for me, it was the Helstrum. One of you mentioned on a previous stream the idea of using Jetstream to speed up the Helstrum rockets. So I want to show that and then kind of dig into it a little bit. Let's do a whole section about that. So I really like the Helstrum, and as I said at the top of the video, it's probably going to get buffed meaningfully in the next 3-4 months or whatever. So it's a space to watch. I feel like this is still pretty fun and fairly effective now, and it's only going to get better in the next third of a year or whatever. So I'm going to show you what it looks like without buffing the speed, just because some people might not have seen it. So your companion will fire a barrage of rockets. As you can see, they fire rather slowly. And if there's terrain, you can see how it would be sort of hard for them to hit enemies. So the idea is that you could bring a companion that has much longer range, Deriga and Jin to a lesser extent. I'm going to bring Deriga for now. And then they can attack enemies with the rockets from far away, but not necessarily actually hitting anything. Shoot him. Get him. Deriga, please, come on. Sometimes pausing AI messes with companions. I don't know. Let's try that. Yeah. There we go. So you can see by the time the rockets get there, not only are they kind of slow, they're not really as slow as I thought of them as, but you can see because they spread quite a bit, they often just miss as well. Now we're going to use Jetstream. quite a bit more accurate. You can see the Sentinel's getting quite a lot more actual hits on the enemy. It seems to have increased the accuracy rather substantially. And it's more like an actual gun, more to the point. Like it just, like, they shoot straight. It kind of looks like they're still behaving a little, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look like that's 250% faster. They're still performing a little differently, but you can see the point stands. The accuracy and effectiveness of this weapon is substantially improved by flight speed. And because, you know, people have to be next to you, but your companion, your Sentinel, is always right on your shoulder, it's kind of a perfect fit. How effective it is to have the Helstrum rockets actually hit enemies is kind of a different matter, so let's talk about that a little bit now. Tempo, welcome back. You said, hello, glad to see a build live for one of my favorite frames when I have lots of time. Glad to have had it found you. Tempo, I'm trying to do better about getting these on YouTube promptly as well, so there'll be an archive of this available too, with timestamps as best as I'm able. And yeah, this whole section should be about the Helstrum, because to me this is one of the funnest payoffs, or it's just cool. Like, I like this weapon, and this makes it a lot better. Now, I had been building this for the Helstrum previously. The idea was that it doesn't do very significant damage, and I wasn't even sure it would hit, so I just wanted it to do the most it could with the status effects. But now that I'm pretty confident it will hit, there's certainly a few things that I would consider removing. Like, it probably doesn't make that much sense to add even more projectile flight speed. Like, it's got 250% now. Do I really care about bumping that up to like 310%? No, I don't think so. It does make the weapon a lot more usable generally, but I'm not sure I'm going to use it generally. I think I'm going to mostly use it here. Let's go over the rest. Firestorm, the rockets explode. This increases the blast radius considerably. From what to what? 3 meters to like 4.32. I think that's significant, but you decide for yourself. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main thing this weapon does, is hit enemies in a group a lot of times. So to me, it's fairly important for to take it off by bumping my mouse. I think that's valuable. Likewise, split chamber and vigilante armaments for more rockets. It seems prudent to me. That's one of the main things I want out of this weapon, is lots of explosive rockets. I definitely want 150% more rockets. Then the rest is a little bit weirder. Fire rate, yeah, I mean, it fires kind of slowly. At the moment, it's once every 2 seconds or so. More fire rate? I have a lot on already. Vial acceleration and vigilante fervor. And then I have like status stuff. So the explosion from the rockets is innate heat. So right now I have malignant force to make gas. What you want to do with the heat is, I think, maybe the next topic. The idea with the gas was that it will at least hit a lot of targets, but I'm not sure how, like, it's not going to do meaningful damage. The hitting a lot of targets would be for stuff that counts the number of different targets you hit. Stuff like Manifold Bond. Companion preset mods apply status effects from companion weapons. Killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects reduces companion ability cooldowns by 3 seconds. This could go a long way toward that. And if killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects, like, it's just your warframe, that's one thing. But there are lots of effects that count enemies injured by the companion. Synth deconstruct, things like that. If the companion is getting assists, if that's what matters, that will increase the number of assists by a lot. In general, I feel like the Helstrum is very good at any, like, assist thing. Any mod that cares about assists, this is like maybe one of the best weapons for that. But I don't know, I feel like the gas is not accomplishing much, and I want a more offensive status effect instead. The obvious one would be viral, and then the thing I always say next is, but for a lot of people, maybe they already have viral on a lot of their stuff, and so does this accomplish anything at that point? But I'm not sure. I mean, it has innate heat as well. That's kind of nice. I don't know. But it's, I think, a bit dealer's choice there. Continuous Misery? Yeah, I mean, it's a utility mod in this slot. I'm just not sure what else I would... What would you have me put instead, you know? More status? Chance, I suppose? There's not a lot that's that good. I mean, you could do 90% status chance, but I would as soon add like a heat status mod, 60% status chance and more heat, which maybe I will. Let's see what that would get it to. 84% status, that's good. But I don't know. I mean, having the status effects last longer, maybe. You know, Warframe is a fast-paced game. There's a question about whether this does anything in practice. Will the enemies just be dead by the time, you know? So I don't know. But you are shooting them from far away. I don't know. I don't know. You could, of course, resolve the conundrum about having a status effect you may get very often by using a bizarre status effect. So, for example, you could do high voltage here, and then you get radiation, which is much less likely to be on your other weapons. Well, I mean, I don't know your life, but in general, in all of Warframe, I think less people have radiation on their weapons than like viral or heat at the moment. You could think about what status effect that would be for you. You get the point. Magnetic or something that is good, but you probably aren't reaching for it immediately. You know, it's good to have, but not what you'd get yourself. Basically, I'm just saying that customizing these so that you get new status effects may be valuable to you. Think about if you care about that. I like this as a compromise. You have a status effect that I know is going to be valuable, and stacking more viral can be good as long as your weapon's not immediately getting there. And then radiation is a status effect I usually don't have on my weapons, but is usually not half bad to have. Especially if it's attacking from far away, it'll make enemies start fighting each other before I get there and kill them in 1 second. Go figure. Indeed, I feel like for a lot of weapons, when you shoot enemies, they have 2-ish status effects. So for something like Manifold Bond, if you want 3, just having the companion weapon inflict 1 that you don't is enough a lot of the time. It doesn't have to be all original, and that's just impractical. I mean, there will be some of you that will build different Helstrum, status builds so that there's unique statuses for like each individual loadout you want to use this on, which I'm just not in that place personally. I think Warframe makes that a bit too hard. That's just me. You could, I mean, this is tied to this loadout. You could have the weapons specifically for Zephyr avoid viral. That would have been what I would do in the past, but I kind of favor making more generally useful weapons nowadays, more generally useful, if the weapon is not something ultra specific. Like, this is not exactly a bad weapon when it's not being used by Zephyr with Jetstream. So I kind of want it to just have the statuses I want on it. I don't really want to shoehorn them for this build, nor is there necessarily anything to be gained by doing that. I don't know. Again, it's up to you, but that's how I feel. So yeah, then the question is kind of like primary, secondary, and maybe heavy weapon. Where do you feel like the payoffs are for increasing flight speed? I was recently kind of interested in the Mandanel. This is the heavy weapon that shipped with Corvex, and I don't think it actually has a fall off damage situation, but it does behave kind of similarly. So let's see how it feels with the flight speed. So when you fire the normal fire, it shoots this kind of delightful spread. Let's see what flight speed does. Makes them fly a lot further. The spread isn't all that much tighter in my opinion. It's not no difference, but it's not huge. I'll do another volley when it's close to wearing off so you can compare one more time. Anyway, catching back up, Ace, you said more puncture on the table would be neat for granting up to 25% crit chance on hit. However, the current state of neutral specials is sus. You're suggesting making the companion weapon have more puncture or statuses like that increase your effectiveness when they stack up. Indeed, this is something that you, Asymptomatic, have rightly, in my opinion, criticized me not digging into more. You can see the difference isn't huge, by the way. They have relatively recently, changed what those status effects do, and I have not really covered that as much as I would be interested in covering it anyway. So yeah, let's take a look at it now. I mean, if you're at a bit of a loss for what to add, like what else is out there. Though it's worth noting that because this weapon has a very even split of impact and puncture and no slash, you may have a little bit of difficulty emphasizing the puncture. It also looks like it only has puncture on direct hit. You could build puncture on it to bias it more for those status effects, but how much that would do is a little bit, I don't know. Let's just take a look at the situation. Let's go over it. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. Familiarize myself a little bit more. Here it feels a little bit more relevant because the companion is so unlikely to accomplish much except increasing our damage or crowd controlling enemies with its status output, and we're fairly likely to just have viral, or at least that's my situation. And cold, we should talk about cold as well. So Puncture at the moment says, I'm reading the wiki, the victim's attacks deal 40% less damage, subsequent procs add 10% reduced damage up to 80%. They do less damage. The victim receives 5% increased weapon critical chance per proc up to 25% at max stacks. This bonus is additive after mods, but does not apply to area of effect damage or warframe abilities. So if you directly shoot the target of a puncture status, after all calculations are finished, you add 5% up to 25% crit chance. And I also want to read the new cold. I think there's a cold effect I hadn't covered. Yes, crit damage. Target of cold receives 10% increased critical multiplier crit damage, and 5% per subsequent proc up to 50% additive after mods. Yeah, they're both modest, but I mean, that I could see that being relevant. Stacking a good amount of cold could be useful. Now, if you do that, you are in a little bit of a weird spot because, of course, the weapon has on its explosions innate heat. So you cannot just run a cold mod. You'll have blast if you do that. Well, the direct hiss will be cold, but you would need to build the heat into something else and then have hanging cold instead. So that's no bad thing. Let's do that. So we'll add a heat mod. And then what else can we add? Well, we can add, we have to add something that builds into the heat. We could add electricity and get radiation and cold. We could add toxin and get gas and cold. Those are the options. Radiation and cold. How about that? Sure. Seems reasonable to me. And instead, we're emphasizing status effects that were much less likely to apply with our Warframe stuff. Again, I don't know your life, but I would predict that's true for most people. But which are relevant debilitating effects. They make us do more damage when we attack the enemy, and they do make the enemy less effective. They'll attack each other, they'll attack slower. You get the idea. Calroga, I can't believe I almost forgot. You are absolutely right. There is also the option to use the new mod with radiation and shivering contagion. Ooh, I forgot we got so many juicy primary mod additions to the game. Why am I not seeing that one? Oh, because it doesn't do status, right? We in our most recent update got a series of mods that give straight radiation damage, by itself radiation damage. Now, I think this gets a little more complicated because you do have to make space for this. You can run heat, toxin to make gas, radiation, and then cold, but you haven't added more status chance with this, so you are getting less of those other statuses, which I'm not entirely sure I want, and the reload speed doesn't do a lot on this weapon. It should be 40% at max rank. Not much. This weapon has a magazine size of 80 and it shoots once every 2 seconds, so it hardly ever reloads. It takes it, what's that, 2.5 minutes or so to reload before it needs to reload for 2 seconds. So the reload speed is negligible in this case, but it does let you add more status types, more different status types. It's not necessarily bad. I think the thing to do, for me anyway, is to compare. Let's add it. And you can see when we shoot enemies, there's a lot of rockets. Maybe even though it's a lot of different statuses competing for space, you'll see like we'll get one of each of them and then you get more unique effects. No bad thing. Calroga, I think that's a great idea. I also wanted to look at that cold mod. It says enemies affected by cold status have a probably 30% chance at max rank will level them up to spread that status to other enemies within 6 meters. Spreading the status that this weapon applies in like a decent range sounds, very nice indeed. Very spicy. It only spreads the cold, so inflicting more cold feels like maybe that would be what I'd want to do. But oh yeah, that's got a lot of potential. I'm thinking maybe mostly for the ice beam companion weapons, of which there are quite a few. Maybe not this one. There's also not a huge amount of space for it, but there's potential here. I think this is really good, potentially. Especially because cold gives you crit damage now. That's gas for companion weapons. It spreads a crit damage buff as you're attacking, exactly. Shivering Contagion, I'm just gonna say in my notes, maybe more for the ice beams, but really good crit damage buff spread. I feel like that's incredibly strong, personally. Great. Okay, so let's level the Vergless is the main weapon I'm talking about, yeah. Let's level the radiation and just take a look. We'll compare. Then we'll probably break and fight with the build a little bit and see what else is left. How's that sound? But indeed, as asymptomatic you were touching on before, again, you can see how this is a place where you might change a lot of your opinions about what you want to put on this weapon, depending on how its effectiveness is improved with the companion changes. We heard that after getting a bunch of new companion mods, we're getting changes to the existing companion mods, companion and companion weapon stats as a kind of second wave in the future, in an update in the near to moderate future. Moderate future? You get what I mean, like kind of soon, but not in like a month. Which matters a lot for this weapon. It's like kind of good currently, or it does a powerful thing, but it does have, it's sort of just barely there, in my opinion. Giving it more output or fire rate, giving it more damage, these things would change how I would mod it a lot. So I would watch carefully what those changes are like for the Helstrum if you're interested in this. I think there's a lot it could gain from those changes. But giving it more puncture, I feel like that's going to be sort of an uphill battle. We can take a look. And it's a nice combo with cold, you know? You get the crit chance and the crit damage. So it's something to look at, I think. Just by the way, we kind of mentioned it offhand before, but to be clear, we get a whole set of these for all types of weapons. So there's one for secondaries, for melee, for arc melee, for shotguns, for arc guns, and for rifles. They all give radiation, just standalone radiation, and then a supportive stat as well. They're dual stat mods. We've got a couple highlights. The arc melee one gives crit chance. The pistol one gives fire rate. Not bad. The melee one gives heavy attack efficiency, which is how much combo you spend when you do a heavy attack. You get multi-shot from the arc gun one. Pretty nice. The arc gun multi-shot mod is a little weak, too. Pretty meaningful. I think the reload speed is probably one of the losers of the group. 40% reload speed is not very good, but because of the way reload speed is calculated. But it's, I mean, it's no bad thing to have reload speed. You're not talking shit about reload speed. I'm gonna level them all up because I'll probably use them. The arc melee one, okay, maybe not, but it costs like nothing to level up, so let's just do it while I'm here. Already got that one. Tempa, you said one unfortunate part of not running Worm is you should find another status negation tool. Why do you say that? Is it because you're thinking Zephyr negates most incoming damage, but things like a toxin cloud would be dangerous? That is reasonable. That seems reasonable. The idea is that Turbulence negates most incoming threats, and most of the ones it doesn't negate include a status effect. Like we talked about napalms and their flamethrowers before. It might negate those, but if it doesn't, that comes with heat, which it would be nice if the heat was negated. Some infested will do kind of rush at you with a toxin cloud, and you won't like deflect the toxin cloud. So you could use Worm or something similar to negate the status. Now you have other options, as Tempa implies. You could use Rolling Guard. Sure. This is a Warframe mod slot, and I'm really liking the prospect of getting to add some weird stuff, like developing the build more in here. You could use an Arcane to completely negate the Toxin. I like this approach in this case, because I don't think that the other statuses you would get are very threatening. If you get one heat status from the napalms, I'm not very scared, but the Toxin will probably kill you if you have no defenses, and that's kind of annoying. You could just straight up negate all of the Toxin damage, just make it so you cannot get Toxin status. Remember, you can still take Toxin damage, but you can't take Toxin status effects. I favor this approach in this case, but I think that's a good note to have brought up. And then you could bring Worm. You could bring Worm. Remember, the only reason I recommended Doriga was because Doriga has longer attack range. There's the Doriga and Jin both have longer attack range than other companions. But, I mean, you don't need to do that. And Worm is kind of nice because Worm also pushes enemies away from you. You can just yeet enemies in close range away, which is not the worst thing to have on Zephyr. And again, you have negate. Just in case people don't know these exist, that's why Worm might be nice. Yeah, I mean, I think Worm makes perfect sense. You could just run Worm, but I'm into Arcane Resistance here as an option. This is also kind of nice on Hildren if you're thinking, do I need to acquire this just for this Warframe? Obviously no, but if you do decide to, Hildren can benefit from this a lot too. Sins of Seven. Thanks for the follow. Welcome aboard. How you doing? Having flashbacks to a similar name that I had for a gaming account of mine. Feeling a kindred spirit. Welcome aboard. How you doing? We're near the break. We were just playing around with, because we're boosting the speed of the rockets from the Helstrum companion weapon with Jetstream. We were talking about what statuses to put on it. If it's going to bombard enemies with status-inflicting rockets, well, what statuses? And we were playing around a little bit. One of the options that came up was to use the new radiation damage mods to add literally just radiation by itself. And then you could build something else. You could build a bunch of other stuff. So we will now do a little comparison before the break to let you all help yourselves figure out what statuses you want on the damn thing. I'm going to do one test with just radiation and cold, and then another test with, I guess, gas instead of building radiation, the radiation mod, and then cold. So it'll be more statuses, but not more status chance. And we're going to have to drop something. All of the remaining mods in the build currently increase status output effectively, so it's going to lose total status output in practice. So you'll see build number 1, something like this. Build number 2, if we put on the radiation status mod, a radiation damage mod, in place of anything other than the status mods, it will still decrease the status output because we have to lose fire rate, less status output, multi-shot, less status output, or firestorm. Each rocket will status apply to less enemies. So no matter what we take off, we lose status output. Vigilante Fervor probably loses us the least, so let's use that as the example. Relative to the amount of fire rate we already have, this is a little bit less of a gain, but it's just barely less compared to Vigilante armaments. You could argue Firestorm is the least impactful option, but I think the explosion radius is pretty meaningful here. So we're going to try this. Again, I'm literally just going to use this build, which explodes for gas, radiation, and cold. Then we're going to take this off, swap back to radiation, and add back on the fire rate. And you can just see for yourself how much status it's outputting and decide what you want. Oh, right, we swapped a worm. Derp. Okay. I'm going to use Doriga. I think it's easier since it can shoot them from all the way back here. Get him, Doriga. Shoot him. We gotta flank him. So those enemies over here, you see, actually have pretty substantial radiation, cold, and good lord, that's a lot of status. Holy shit, that's better than I expected. Wow. Doriga, be a deer and shoot this guy. Thank you. That's pretty consistent. I think I want all three. That's great. That was like 2 volleys, and it has practically a full stack of every status it has on it, except for the physical types. That's good. I think I want the radiation. Wow, that's better than I expected. Hell yeah. Do this, I think. It has better status output than it would seem. This weapon's multi-shot situation is kind of weird. It fires like 7 rockets, even though it doesn't say. But anyway, what if we make it boring and bring viral? We talked about that a little bit earlier, Calroga. It's no bad thing. You could bring viral and just accept that a lot of your weapons will probably redundantly stack viral. It will stack viral before you shoot enemies a good amount of the time. That could matter. You could put viral on this and not build viral on the weapons you're going to pair with it. For example, if you use this only with Zephyr or mostly with Zephyr, you could just build the weapons for Zephyr to not have viral because you expect to get it from your companion. You could do that. I said that's not my appetite most of the time. Or you could not build viral and count on getting it from your other weapons. Another note about that is that your squad mates probably also have viral output on their weapons on average. So personally, I like the approach where you assume the viral is coming from the Warframe weapons and build your companion to do something else. I often favor that approach. But it's perfectly valid to do any of the three. Just don't worry about this and put viral on everything. If you want something that's always good, just put the viral on things. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Probably most of you watching this stream and enjoying yourselves, talking about build options for like several hours straight, probably don't want to do that. And so you'll likely choose one or the other place to not build viral. You'll either not put it on the companion weapon or not put it on your Warframe weapons, or maybe not put it on either. And personally, I favor not putting it on the companion weapon. That just makes it more plug and play. Like I don't have to worry as much about what's on my Warframe weapons. I can swap stuff in, and I know the companion weapon is built with it in mind that I'm going to swap stuff in. I personally think that status choice in Warframe is still not very interesting. Most weapons, the other statuses wouldn't make gameplay more interesting. They would just do less damage. And there's a few exceptions, like on some weapons that hit multiple targets for a lot of damage. I am currently using gas because I think you just don't need the damage increase. But for the most part, I don't think that building like corrosive or heat instead of viral makes the game more fun. It just makes my weapons do less damage. So I would rather have the simplicity of knowing what's on the Warframe weapons and then build something different on the companion weapon. But that's just how I feel. I think you're right to say, like, maybe just build viral, sure. Though it is worth noting that if you build viral here, you cannot build standalone cold and get the crit damage buff from your companion's weapon. Go figure. Kind of a toss-up in my opinion. But yeah, I think the status output with radiated reload and, you know, whatever combined gas is what's left, and then a standalone cold is sick. Like, it's like 2 volleys and you get a full stack of all 3 statuses. That's awesome. I think that's great. That's a lot better than I thought it would be for me. Let's get him to shoot someone and you can see again. And it's in such a nice area too. Look, all of these guys already got tagged. And it's been like 1 second of combat. That's sick. We've been here for like 3 seconds and every enemy is carpet bombed with statuses. That's amazing. Oh, that's so good. The accuracy increase is really quite surprising too, isn't it? Like, look, if we take off Jetstream and then let it shoot the enemies, look at how inaccurate it is. But then if you use Jetstream, suddenly it improves so much. I think what's happening, what it looks like is happening to me, is it's not because of the flight speed. It's because the homing range of the rockets seems to have like extended due to the flight speed. I don't know why that is, but that's what it looks like is happening. So you can see here, it's not so much that the rockets are like not spreading out as much. They're actively homing where they were not before, shooting at this range. Don't you think? It kind of looks like that. I don't know why. That's very strange, but anyway, for whatever reason it is, the flight speed increases the effectiveness by like a ton. This goes from just whiffing every shot to perfect accuracy even out to the full range. So awesome. Really, really good. And as we've talked about a lot of times, but I will emphasize one more time, Ragnavar, welcome back. This is before the potential gains of the companion weapon rework they've said they want to do probably early next year. The Helstrum is likely going to be stronger than this in the next like half to a third of a year. So that's pretty good. I'm a big fan. Willow writes, welcome board. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we were just finishing the first half of our show today. talking about boosting the effectiveness of weapons with Zephyr with Jetstream to increase flight speed. You can make shotguns do their full damage out to a longer range. You can have wave-based weapons hit enemies further back because the wave will travel further in its limited time. And you can have the Helstrum rockets actually hit stuff out to a decent range. Glorious glory. Second half of the stream, we're probably going to hack around with like the Zephyr's 2 base abilities. We're not really doing anything with them yet on this build, and I think it would be fun to build into that. Here's where we are so far. Let's fill out the rest, shall we? Take a quick break and then do that. Yoink. Sorry, we haven't Helminth over anything yet. Right now, Zephyr is Helminth neutral. I usually try to do that for the beginning of streams. Feather, you said, imagine if the companion rework was just giving the Burgless more reasonable stats and nothing else. Indeed, in the before time, I would have assumed that a companion weapon rework would have been just nerfing the Burgless, which is justified, but not very exciting. And then that would be it. In the current state of Warframe, I can basically guarantee you they will not do that. I feel like the developers currently for Warframe, you've put your cards on the table. It seems like you want to make companions a little too powerful because people don't use them. And your hope is that people will pick them up because they are like kind of stocked right now. Companion stonks have been crazy for the past like 6 months. If you put the Vergless on a companion and a bunch of bond mods, and it has like a kind of good precept, basically one of the more recent ones like the Nautilus, that's insane. You have like almost an entire Warframe worth of effectiveness just sitting on your shoulder murdering everything. You can quite easily finish several Steel Path missions with just your companions sitting there on your shoulder. And that's before all the companion buffs they have planned. Holy shit. So I'm fairly confident that they're not going to just nerf the Vergless and be done with it. Not because it's either here or there, like the Vergless is really overpowered compared to everything else, and it does make companion weapon choices boring because it's really powerful. I would just argue that this is a case where it's okay to buff. Like, players often reductively argue that nerfing is bad because you can just buff everything. You cannot always buff everything. Sometimes it kind of cracks the game in half, and you can't actually operate the game if things do that much damage. Your companion will just explode everything, and there will be no game left. But I do not think that is one of those cases. I think it's like perfectly fine to just triple the damage of every other companion weapon. Probably not Death Machine Rifle. That's a little bit closer. And that would actually be pretty balanced. They will probably just buff the hell out of most of them. They're so weak currently. They'll probably just buff them all. Folks, quick break, and then we'll keep on moving on. Hello and welcome back to my Twitch ARRchive Parley. I'm gonna take a quick break now, so I recorded this little Q&A right before the stream started to entertain you while I take that break. Get up, stretch your legs, grab a snack, a beverage maybe, while I answer this question from Seameister, who asks, why do you keep remaking the Build Lab series? You've called it the Live Build Craft Show, Framework, and other things over the years, but you haven't just sat down and made a bunch of them. Why do you keep doing that? Okay, why overthink it? I love these blunt questions. They're easy to answer. They let us hit the ground running. That's true. I have done that. We have technically been making something kind of like this video that we're making right now for years. You know, I had it as just a Warframe focused build making series called Framework on my Zandypants YouTube channel, and now these live on the Bootleg Builds channel, but it's still, you know, pretty much an individual thing in the game build show. So why change it so many times, right? I have three answers. The first one is the simplest. It's that I have a perfectionism streak that I am working on because I don't actually care or value things being perfect. It's just an impulse or an instinct, I guess. And it's pointless. Like, I think that's pointless. I criticize other people for doing such a thing. I don't agree that that's valuable. I'm just saying it is something I do. It's bad. There's essentially no upside in my opinion. It's just bad. I heard a really good quote when reading a comic book. I was in like the acknowledgements of a comic book. I think maybe Sandman, but I can't quote it. And it was basically like, some people wait for inspiration to arrive. The rest of us show up to work. And I have since kind of taken that philosophy and ran with it to believe that to do good work that involves creative energy, you need to just do it every single day or, very consistently with boundaries, but that's a whole different subject. We'll talk about it another time. And you will get the good things that you have in you out of that. It doesn't like make better things if you take more time between each thing artistically. But that brings me to point number 2. I don't think most people spend that much time thinking about the format of the things they make. And if I keep doing this for like 10 years or more, which I want to, then if I'm planning to do that from the start, doesn't it make sense to spend a good amount of time thinking about or kind of trying out different ways and researching what the more fun ways to do it are? I think so. I think it makes sense to spend way more time than most people do trying to get the format right. Because as soon as I make a ton of them, we're kind of stuck. You know what I mean? As soon as it catches on, and is a thing that lots of people watch, changing the name is sort of like branding suicide and will be very punishing. So having it be kind of stuck a way that is a good way to have it be stuck, it makes sense, don't you think? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I've gotten it wrong a few more times, and it's complicated by the fact that my personal life has been a bit of a roller coaster for the past few years, and that while I was always talking about builds, it was originally only ever in Warframe. And while that hasn't been true for several years, that is still kind of lingering over the Zandypants YouTube channel. I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting people to stop making comments as if I just always only cover Warframe news stuff, even though I haven't basically done that at all for years. And I've made lots of videos that are not like that. That's been a little frustrating. I do think that contributes to it, but in the legacy of creators kind of pivoting the publicly perceived focus for their videos, it's going pretty well for me. So I won't complain too much, except, I mean, I just did. Reason number 3. I have legitimately had new ideas. This is a little bit like reason number 2, but I guess basically it's just, I think I really have had better ideas. I think that enacting some ways of doing this series differently that I thought were better really are better. Like, I think focusing on an individual piece in the game to make builds with, and then kind of branching out from there, what we've been doing in this kind of reboot version currently, that's a recent idea. I think that that's more fun and represents the way people actually play video games better. I just think it's more fun too. Like this one was because somebody suggested the idea of using Zephyr's jet stream to speed up the Helstrum's rocket barrages, the Helstrum Sentinel or companion robot weapon. Which it sounds like a super fun thing. And there are lots of ways you can use Jetstream's projectile speed increase to good effect. Why not make like a whole loadout based on that? That sounds fun. I would like to play that. Let's just do that. And the fact that it kind of isn't Zephyr overall, like why does it need to be a comprehensive thing about Zephyr? It just doesn't, in my opinion. Maybe sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You can already get that. I think this is providing the more unique thing. I guess that's kind of only 2.5 reasons. That's my answer. I hope it kind of makes sense. If you want to ask your own question during these segments, you can do so using a link I'm posting in chat here on Twitch. You click that link and submit a question, and I'll answer it this time next week. You'd be doing me a favor. I'd have something to talk about during these segments. For now, on with the show. Few quick questions that came up during the break, and then we'll keep moving. Calroga, you said, I can't find the augment tier list you made on YouTube, by the way. Yes, thank you for asking about that. I have to talk about some algorithm metagaming. People who are not familiar with this or my other YouTube videos, bear with me for a moment. You might find this somewhat interesting, I guess. Yes, so I had to unlist it. The reason I had to unlist it, and I can link it to you if you really need something from it, by the way. It still exists. I just can't have it listed because the old build-focused videos that are more Warframe-focused are kind of preventing other videos of mine from getting viewed. Now, part of that is because people don't want to view them. People don't think of YouTube channels as having, like, topics. And so to to them, to a lot of people, my channel is a Warframe channel because there is a lot of Warframe stuff on it. Or when I made a Limbus Company video, the comments were all like, yay, you're a Limbus Company creator now. It's like, no, I'm just discussing build stuff in games, and in all of my videos, I don't shut up about that. But that's just not how people think about people's channels, and that's okay, even though it's kind of a problem for me. But the real issue is that YouTube thinks about videos in terms of risk. So if you watch a video from my YouTube channel, and most of the videos from my YouTube channel you have watched are Warframe videos, and or most of the videos on my YouTube channel that have done well are Warframe videos, YouTube will see that you watched one of my videos and go, okay, what video do we recommend to this viewer next to make them not leave YouTube so we get, on average, more advertising money? And YouTube will choose to never show them any of my videos that are not Warframe related, nominally, because they see it as less of a risk to recommend those. I saw very clearly that when I made a new video that did well, that was about something other than Warframe, all of my Warframe related videos got a spike in views, but none of my other videos got a spike in views. The older Warframe videos were kind of holding hostage the rest of my audience and not allowing them to see the other videos. I've gotten quite a few messages from folks in the past few months or year or so, basically amounting to, I didn't know you made other videos recently. YouTube didn't show me them. And YouTube didn't show them because YouTube was only redirecting them to like the Warframe video stuff. This means that in practice, I'm not just going to not cover Warframe build related things because I like discussing those things. And there's stuff to say and people enjoy them. I'm not going to stop doing that, but it does mean that I needed to decide what I wanted to do about the old videos, and I decided to unlist them. They're out of date anyway. Like they're just not up to date. They're not correct information anymore because Warframe changes so damn much all the time. So I hope you can accept that it's actually not that much of a loss. Like, while I know a lot of people really enjoyed that video and I had fun making it, it's not actually useful information anymore in many cases. And you can still watch it, like it's unlisted. If you need help finding it, you can always message me on Discord and I'll send you a link. And I'm trying to maintain a playlist that is all the videos that I took off like public listing. They're not discoverable, but you can still watch them if you have a link. I'm trying to maintain a playlist of those. I hope you can accept some patience while I set that up. But yeah, I have to unlist those. If a video goes unlisted or you can't find a video, it's almost certainly like that. Feel free to ask me for it. I wish there wasn't this convoluted answer to that, but that's what happened. That's what's going on. Thank you for asking. You gave me a needed opportunity to talk about like what's going on. I may make some kind of like location, like a channel in the Discord with links to those things. But personally, I strongly believe that for 99% of people, it isn't actually beneficial to be able to find those videos. They literally aren't up-to-date information. It would really only be if you desperately needed to remember, like sometimes something that someone said in a video just gets in your head. I get that. If there's something you need in those, I am happy to link you to them, but I don't think it actually does much to like maintain a easily visible archive about them, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm really happy you like them. I hope you can understand that I am still taking notes about those videos. When I unlist a video that has like 100,000 views, I write down in my notes, people liked the hell out of this. Do you want to do a video similar to this? Because it will do well, probably, you know? I will absolutely do that. I will definitely do that. And again, I'm trying to make them accessible as well. But it's a bit of a task, and we don't even have consistent normal videos on the damn channel. So it's a balancing act. I hope you can understand. That's important to me, but it is just not important compared to like the channel continuing to exist. If I don't make more money in the next 6 months, we can't keep doing this way. So that needs to take far more priority than like maintaining the videos that are causing me to not be able to do this for a living. But I still care about them. Remember, nothing bad has happened to them. They're still there. I'll do my best to maintain that. It's been a lot. Asymptomatic, I didn't have anything to add to your kneeling chair update, but I thought it was interesting. You're just saying it's been helping your blood flow. You feel like it's kind of hard to get up from the kneeling chair, but Otherwise, you feel like it's an improvement. I have been working on my blood flow lately. I am a lanky man. I am 6 feet tall, and it's mostly my legs and spindly arms. My core is very small. This is bad for your health. It makes your blood flow not as good. I do have a standing desk set up, as you all will have noticed. And I've been trying to use it a lot more and take stretch breaks more, and I have a break built into the stream, for goodness sakes. But it's not, it's not perfect, right? Doing more stretches and taking more time to take breaks is good. Not so bad for all of you either, for me to like set a good example by doing that. But it's a work in progress. So I don't know. I'm kind of interested, Asymptomatic. I might look into it. We'll see. It won't be in the budget, but that doesn't mean I can't, like, I don't know, take a look or mock something up. Anyway, just a few more things before we get back to the Zephyr stuff. Tempa, I saw your thing about the Phantasma. That's kind of interesting. I do think, like, lob weapons are a good candidate for Jetstream. For sure, we can talk about those. I'll put that on the list. For sure, sounds good to me. I can think of quite a few, particularly one of my favorites for use with, yep, Calruga's got it already, the Napalm Penta. This becomes dramatically more usable with Jetstream. I'll show you. I think this is one of the premier advantages you get for Jetstream. So we'll definitely talk about that. Calruga, you said another question. Where can I find the Wisp Lab video? I'm not sure we've done one. Or we might have done one and there was a problem with the stream. Wisp was on my list for Warframes to cover soon, so if that means covering her again, that's by the by. I'm not sure. Calruga, I hope you'll... It doesn't sound ridiculous of me to say, I don't always know which frames we've covered. I mean, I do 3 streams 3 days a week for many different games and make a lot of other videos, so sometimes I feel quite embarrassed to say we worked really hard on this build, but I don't remember. Like, I just can't remember all of it. It's, and it comes back, right? The moment Calruga, you said Penta, my brain suddenly went, oh my goodness, Napalm Penta is so good with Jetstream. Like, it was in there, but not right at the front. So I'm not entirely sure, Calruga. I can take a look. If we made it, then it will be in the archives. I do keep the archives quite tidy, and I have Wisp Prime, so we'll definitely cover Wisp soon if we don't have one up already. But it's the most likely explanation is there was a problem with the stream archive. I will put it in my notes. Wisp build lab. And check after the stream. Okay, let's do more like finishing out Zephyr stuff. So this is going to be mostly more Zephyr weapons if you have them, but the next thing to tackle is like Helminth abilities, I think. And then we'll take it into the field. So Napalm Penta. It shoots a grenade. The grenade is, it has okay flight time. You can see it's a chonk, right? Like you have to you can't really shoot it where you want it to go at too much range. It's not so bad. I think it used to be worse, but I think I probably also already have some flight time on it. I don't. Wow. It's not as bad as it used to be. I do have projectile speed on it already. I was gonna say, like, there's some reason why that's not as bad. It's pretty hard to use. Yeah, there you go. You can see. It don't go too far. It's that's pretty sad. So I mean, with Jetstream, it's way more usable. It basically becomes a rocket launcher, right? This is awesome. It does excellent damage. It does a lot of heat. Yeah, it's a great weapon, but it can be quite cumbersome to use without the flight speed. Excellent group damage otherwise. I think this is pretty fun, but again, it's really, really bad if you don't have the flight speed. You have to get extremely close to enemies and shoot, yeah, like a potato. It's like a potato gun without the flight speed. Now, I have, you can just get a Riven for that, of course. This was a weapon where I like this a lot, and it's like basically unusable without the projectile speed, to me anyway. So I like having the Riven, sure, but yeah, it's not in a good place without that. So it benefits a lot from Jetstream. I doubt it's going to be very noticeable if you have both. Yeah, no, I mean, it feels about the same. Oh, look at that. Yeah, so pretty satisfying, right? Like, you get a lot of missiles. Missile barrage, Zephyr. That's right. That's what I want, personally. That made me think also of the kind of rocket swarm type weapons. So Prisma Angstrom is the first one that came to mind. The idea is that this can shoot like a spread of rockets, but you see they're not very focused. Now, you can normally use this to some effect by just like getting really close to enemies. And then the shotgun of rockets, you can see how that actually might hit an enemy with a lot of explosions. But I mean, you know where this is going by now. You could increase the flight speed, and then that actually doesn't look much better. It's out of ammo. Okay, maybe this one isn't that good for some reason. Let's take a look. It's okay, it's okay. Let's, wow, it's not better. Maybe it isn't affected by that. Maybe it's because it's so geometric, like it just fires them at a set angle no matter what, but I feel like that would still... Huh. I don't know why that's not better with the flight speed, but for some reason it doesn't look like it is. I'm going to write that in my notes. Prisma Angstrom, for some reason, it doesn't really improve very much. Weird. Yeah, I don't know. It almost looks like it spreads a little more. Yeah, or it's about the same anyway. What the heck is going on? I'm not doing anything weird here, right? I am, actually. Well, but just multi-shot and magazine capacity, that's not going to make it. Yeah, that's fine. That's odd. Yeah, no, that doesn't seem that good to me. Anywho, yeah, so the Secura Penta was meant to open a discussion about like lob type weapons where the projectile has travel time and particularly it's heavy, like it has an arc. Just quickly, another weapon that comes to mind and is also a shotgun would be, but what's it called? You know the one. The Big Chongo Slug Prime, Euphona Prime. Big Chungus Prime, great. Yeah, so this, it doesn't have much projectile drop, but the thing is that it does like really bad damage in my experience if you don't get a very direct hit. So increasing the projectile speed so that it's quite dead on target makes a big difference compared to needing to kind of precisely calibrate the drop. You can see at this range, you do not need to account for projectile drop anymore. It just hits immediately wherever you click, which I think is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And of course, the secondary fire of the Euphona Prime is a shotgun with, I believe, shotgun fall off. So if you like that, you know, maybe it's not a bad option. But because it doesn't have actual flight time, the spread is still really bad at long range. So I don't know. Ooh, the Catabolist. That's a funny one for the lob type weapons. Yeah. This is a funny one. We'll have to see if it actually works, but they don't have much projectile drop, but of course, yeah, like bows and crossbows are affected by the flight speed. It might just not be as noticeable. Yeah, let's see if it probably works. Let's see. So here's the throw. A lob. And now we'll empty the magazine. And as you saw, that was also pretty heavy, right? It's a very lobby weapon. I don't know. No, I don't know. Well, I'll say what I said with the Exodia Contagion. It's not entirely clear. It doesn't look like that works. And if that is it working, that's not very good. I like the Catabolist, though. I'm just not sure this adds to it. Unfortunately. Recently got a new mod too, yeah. I have a lot to say about the Catabolist, potentially. It's kind of in my beloved category of weapons that add a little mix-up to gameplay. You do something when you reload. I recently made that Quats video. Gameplay Gems Quats. This is very much also a love of mine. A little less spammy, but that's no bad thing. Would also benefit very much from a magazine capacity reduction ribbon, if you were in the market for such a thing. But yeah, no, it doesn't seem to work with Turbulence. Jetstream. How about the compressor? So the reason I want it to work with this is that the bubble spread is kind of high, but if this weapon hits with a lot of its shots, the damage is pretty good. So maybe they'll hit in a smaller area. Kind of. They sure get there faster. It looks pretty cool. I'm not sure that accomplishes all that much, but yeah, I don't know. It's all right. Would you throw the Javelok further? That's a question. I feel like if the compressor didn't work for a coding reason, the Javelok won't work, but let's try. Looks like that normally. Jetstream. Oh yeah. Yeah. It totally works. We'll throw up to make it a little more dramatic. You see dead on target. And then if I aim at that without Jetstream, a lob. So the drop isn't too bad, but the flight time is rather slow. This is like significantly better. Yeah. The Javelok is, the Javelok throw is one of the damage sources of all time. It doesn't do particularly amazing damage. It does a lot better damage if you get a ribbon that increases mag capacity, since it does damage based on each round of the magazine, unless they change that because Warframe. And it isn't affected by multi-shot. If you're trying to get this weapon's throw to do good damage, it is not affected by multi-shot. So you could make a build kind of like this were you in the market. This is what I have been using. I'll show you the damage it does against those random level 100 dudes, if you want. Really, really bad. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have gas damage on it right now. And the idea is that it will do better damage if it hits a group of enemies. But because it's only one hit, this weapon has that fallacy where in Warframe, all things being equal, hitting a lot of times is often better than hitting one time for the same damage, because you'll benefit on the subsequent hits from status you got. You'll mow down nullifier bubbles. You almost always end up with more status output. So even if the status chance is equivalent, like this weapon definitely suffers from it being one big hit. That's just usually bad in Warframe. But what are you going to do? It would help to give the weapon better upfront damage. So like if you built Corrosive and Cold, for example, that would help because the damage types would pierce more armor up front. But I remember when I built that that way, the damage was still low enough that I decided it wasn't going to feel good to me unless I hit a big group with gas anyway, which is why I built gas. But you could well try. Tempo makes a good point. This is kind of a different thing than what we're doing, but spear guns might be interesting if you want to focus on secondaries with airburst rounds. Yeah, as we transition into talking about like Zephyr augment and the remaining ability stuff. Zephyr does have an augment that makes airburst or grouping ability or push ability increase secondary damage by a lot for each enemy hit, and it does scale with strength and duration, which are the two things we have a lot of. So you would increase your secondary damage by a lot. Now we did dump range on this build so far, so it might not hit that many targets, but yeah, I mean, let's see. The radius is 4 meters, but I mean, if they're already grouped up and you get 100% damage for every one you hit, yeah, it's kind of a different build than this in my opinion, but that's an interesting point. I'm going to keep the Penta on to remind myself that that's existing. Maybe we can use that to boost the damage of the Grimoire. Oof. Yeah, you know, actually, that's a thought. What about the Grimoire? This should be affected, right? It has these slow boys that kind of go out there. And surely this... Yeah, totally. The super slow secondary fire is affected. Yeah, let's go. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now we're getting somewhere. Beautiful. There's potential with this guy. I mean, the damage is still kind of sad, but well, you could use the airburst rounds to boost the damage. So, yeah, indeed. Yeah, I actually do want that a lot. Oh, the secondary is that feels so much easier to use. I love that. Ooh, that's good. Okay, big fan. Yes, good suggestion. So the reason I got excited about the Grimoire is also because of its weird, like, supportive mods. Let's talk about those briefly. So the Grimoire has a set of mods for it, two sets, I guess. The Invocation mods and the Canticle mods. Right now there are 4, I believe, of each type. These can just only be equipped on tome weapons. Presumably there'll be more. The Invocation mods are when you do the alt fire, you increase a stat on your Warframe, basically. And it stacks based on how many enemies you hit. And the Canticle mods give some kind of utility effect. These vary a little more, basically when you kill enemies. So this is when you use the alt fire, you get Warframe ability stats, and this is when you kill enemies, you get some benefit. We can go over all of them if you're interested in that. Tamrigaku, you said, why is the fire rate so slow? On the Grimoire, it's just slow. The weapon has slow fire rate. I haven't added any yet, and I do have Creeping Bullseye, but I would add some. So let's do that. By the way, I actually don't know, I have no space, so we can't add that. I don't know how the Grimoire charges its secondary fire. If it's per hit, it kind of looks like it's per use, like per time you fire it. But if it's per hit, I would imagine that adding more multi-shot would feel good. And because you get fire rate from Lethal Torrent, I would kind of be into it. Radiation and fire rate, it's all coming together. Interesting. Yeah, you could use Accelerated Isotope too. Grimoire charges over time, but hitting enemies speeds it up. Interesting. Okay, it just charges over time. But yeah, I was going to say, if hitting enemies speeds it up, the Lethal Torrent would maybe make a meaningful difference, and I would love fire rate. Yeah, again, I haven't really built this out too much yet. But a lot of potential. Again, the Invocation and Canticle mods give you quite a bit of potential utility. I'm sure there will be more of these in the future. But they, at the moment, I think this is a huge build system upgrade because you get the ability to add tons of stats to your Warframe from just your secondary slot. You do have to use it to get the stats. I think that it's not necessarily bad, but just that you do have to use it for the Invocation effects. The Canticle effects, I'm not entirely clear. So you see this one, the one I have equipped, says, enemies have a 12% chance to drop a universal orb on death. Like, always? Universally, if you will? Boo. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, it doesn't say only when this weapon kills them, but I feel like that's true. The other ones say, killing enemies reduces the armor and shields of other enemies within affinity range by 5 meters, 5%. This is sick, by the way. Killing enemies grants allies within affinity range 30% fire rate. Killing enemies grants allies within affinity range 40% shield recharge rate and 28% shield recharge delay for 15 seconds. These sound like you have to kill them with the tome, but I'm not exactly sure. Anyway. So yeah, lots of questions about the Grimoire and the tome weapons generally. I think my big concern about this one currently is that the weapon itself is not that strong in my current evaluation, but it's not that built out yet. I just feel like playing this all these years, I do have a little bit of a sense of that, but I'm a little worried that the damage is not really there, so these effects are theoretically good, but in practice you'll have to use a weapon quite weak to trigger them. We'll see. I mean, in Warframe, theoretically right now, I feel like that shouldn't matter that much, right? We have so much damage in the game. It should be quite easy to just make anything do good damage. Damage is the last thing that on your mind, you know? And indeed, in this example, it came up because we can buff the damage with Airburst. But there are lots of ways, of course. Airburst Rounds would give a big base, probably, damage % boost. But I mean, you could do that any number of ways. In this case, I don't particularly think this is a great fit here because we've thrown the range in the garbage. But I mean, you could not do that. It does negatively affect Tornado. We do have space to not throw the range in the garbage. Maybe we should just make the range a little bit better. It's a toss-up. Personally, I think because I want to maximize Turbulence's effectiveness, I'm kind of not that keen to build into Airburst. But that's just me. It's certainly a way you could go. You could drop Cunning Drift, put on Stretch, or keep Cunning Drift and put on Stretch. You could lower Narrow-Minded's rank. Like, I think having the duration is nice, but you don't need this much. You could put on Intensify instead of Transient Fortitude. You could do it. But yeah, I don't know. I also think the Grimoire is not so weak that I need like nuclear war levels of damage. I'm kind of okay doing like a normal damage buff. You could just bypass the whole like range problem thing and put Helminth like Zada's Whisper over Airburst and use that to increase the damage. That should be perfectly adequate. So again, I'm not super into the Airburst Rounds approach in this case. It is an elegant fit. It's a good idea, but you have a lot of options. If you like that, that's a great choice. Just got to do something about the range. And if you don't, there are many other ways you could increase the damage. Tamer Gecko, I understood that reference. Yes, there are many glorious things to name the Grimoire. Ragnavar, just quickly, I thought this was interesting. I hadn't thought of Fulmination on this weapon, but I feel like it's kind of good because the number of hits you're all saying increases the charge time for the secondary fire. You said Fulmination, from what I've heard, doesn't work on the secondary, but does on the primary, which I would be fine with. I would definitely check that first, which will be hard to do in here, and I don't have the mod space to add that and more damage. But watch this space. I'm definitely going to write Grimoire in the notes for Zephyr. This is another weird one, I think. And let's take that as a bridge to talk about Helminth weapons. I mean, abilities. Yeah, maybe Airburst Rounds will still be good with no more range, or only a little more range, because Tornado still has okay range. That's true. Tempe, you said Tornado still, with our current build, still gathers enemies from 10 meters away, so Airburst shouldn't be too hard to boost. Potentially, yep. I'll definitely write Airburst Rounds as an option, and people have heard about it. If that's something you'll like, it's definitely on the table. We've put it on the table I'm trying to say we've discussed it adequately, I think. But I don't know. I would like to see what else there is. I think my big thing is that I don't think of Zephyr's first and second abilities as doing much. Let's talk about that first, I guess. That's kind of where I am with Helminth abilities. I want quite a lot, potentially, because I just don't think there's a lot here. So Airburst. This is, in principle, it starts out looking good, in my opinion. It's a grouping ability that can also knock enemies away if you want. You can tap to pull them together. You can hold to send them apart. Mostly the tap. But Tornado does do that. It just does it with a little less control, but for a long time. I like Tornado. You could view my criticism of Airburst as being a criticism of Airburst or Tornado, but I think these are kind of redundant, usually. It's interesting that because Tornado's range survives low range stats better, you could use Airburst Rounds from Airburst with Tornado. That's an interesting idea. But for the most part, I think you see my point. I consider these a bit redundant. It's like two abilities that don't really do anything but group enemies up on the same frame is just not necessary most of the time. And then Tailwind. This does have a mod that lets you do a good amount of damage with it if you want to build that out. The range of the hitting enemies with Tailwind is affected by range mods. So on this build, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but you can use this offensively, and it's a random dash. If I remember correctly, the air speed of the dash is affected by duration or strength. It's affectable. Let's just find out what it's affected by. It's quite good on this build. I just don't know why. So it's 67.95 and now it's 75. So it's affected by duration. The speed you move at is affected by your duration stat. So I don't know, like, I don't hate this kind of ability just to have around. It allows you to just dash incredibly fast through missions as a movement ability, kind of like aiming Excalibur's slash dash up. I kind of like that, personally. So I'm more inclined to replace Airburst or Tornado on this particular build. I feel like when this ability isn't useful offensively, it's still, like, kind of nice to have around, or I just like it. Additionally, I'm kind of inclined to use Zephyr in open spaces, like open worlds can feel really fun with a Warframe that's so floaty like this, I think. Whereas normal hallway Warframe missions, I think, can be a little frustrating. Just briefly, there is a Tailwind augment that lets you reset Zephyr's bullet jump with Tailwind, and every enemy you hit increases the damage, but if you're on the ground for a little while, it resets. You can have a good amount of fun with this. It's just something quite different than what we're doing here, I think. You'd want very high range, in my opinion. So that. But personally, again, I think that's a rather different direction from this build. No bad thing. Briefly, I'll mention Funnel Clouds. It says creates 8 additional tornadoes. All tornadoes are 50% their original size and won't pick up enemies. But I kind of want these to pick up enemies, personally. Or you could put this on and then consider Airburst less redundant and then build into that. Another quick thing worth mentioning that I forgot is that if you hold Tailwind on the ground or while airborne, you can just like stop in the air, which can be useful. That can just be fun. It's useful utility because you can't really be hurt by anything with Turbulence. Yeah, it's a minor thing, but it's not bad. You can kind of do it with aim glide mods, but you could just keep Tailwind on the Warframe. So yeah, for me, I'm interested in replacing Airburst, but interesting. Another thing for Helminth abilities that may or may not come up here, but it's worth putting on the table, is we get a new weird Intensify variant that listens for a Warframe's 4th ability. Asymptomatic says it need not be the Warframe's original 4th ability. Interesting. If you've tested that, that's exciting. So the idea is you could put a Helminth ability in that slot that you wanted the increased effectiveness for. Let's level that up. How much strength is it? I wasn't super excited about this mod when I saw it at first, and the reason is that I felt like the amount of benefit, like the amount of times you're only going to want the strength, or you only would have benefited from the strength on your 4th ability, is not, that's not going to happen a lot, is how I felt. But it's a lot of strength. 90% strength from one mod with no negative is a lot. If you run the full Umbral mod set with Intensify, I think it's 77%. It's late for me right now. It's that's a lot. Full set Umbral Intensify is 77%, which is a lot. That's close to this, but I mean, that's relevant on way less frames, and that's a lot of space. This is pretty much blind rage for your 4th slot with no negative, yeah. So I still think that's cool. Do note that, as Asymptomatic points out, it is an Intensify mod, of which we now have some variety. There's an Archon Intensify that I don't own, but that exists. There's also Normal Intensify, and then there's Umbral Intensify. And this is exclusive with them all. You cannot run multiple Intensify variants. No bad thing necessarily, just something worth noting. Cool. Again, I'm not sure if we'll use it specifically here, but definitely if we're Helminthing and considering replacing this or this, I mean, we have the mod space, you know. You could well just increase the range, like as we've talked about. That's not like a bad option. The Airburst Rounds thing is kind of growing on me. Like, you just use Tornado to group enemies and then throw an Airburst anyway. Might be fine. This does have like a co-op syndrome. I don't know. It's allergic to co-op is what I'm saying. Your allies will just kill all the enemies and you will not be able to group them up with one ability and then hit them with another ability. They'll just be dead. and you won't be able to do this, which means your Grimoire will not get the increased damage, which, like, isn't a big deal, but I'm just saying that that's a thing. Listen to me. We Helminth Airburst into the 4. Okay, so... you know, so the thing about doing that is... Just by the way, can you do that? I've never thought about doing that before because there hasn't really been a reason to, but can you... You cannot. I just thought... Yeah, man, I mean... Yeah. I don't know. Let's try. It's almost the end of the stream and we haven't played the build at all. So I think the thing I would like to do is decide whether I want to do, you can do whatever you want, whether I want to do the Airburst Rounds tornado thing by trying that with no additional mods. Like if I just do this, how do I feel? And then maybe I'll Helminth over Tailwind. We could add something. Yeah, and again, you could just add Stretch or something, like there's still room, but I just want to see how it feels with just this. And we'll leave the Grimoire as is as well. I really like the way you worded it. Was very ominous, Calroga. You said, listen to me, we Helminth Airburst into the 4. And then asymptomatic right on cue to message, the sweet sinful fruit is running both Blind Rage and Precision Intensify. Glorious. Anyway, let's just take a look. And just to make it as possible, formulated badly, but you know what I mean, to actually do the thing, I will go on the steel path to make enemies tankier. So again, what I want to see is just like with the mods we have, how usable does it feel to use Airburst Rounds, mostly with Tornado, I guess. Tornado should still group enemies, like, sort of. There's that co-op syndrome, by the way. So how doable does it feel to actually get value out of Airburst Rounds? I have no energy, lol. I mean, look at that. Look at that. That's 500% damage with Airburst Rounds, man. I don't know. It's good. I think it's fine. Yeah, totally. I was being overly cautious about that. That's fine. Let's see the damage. It's not going to be that good because I don't have that many mods on this yet. But I mean, I don't know. Like that, it wasn't very difficult. And again, Warframe's hallway ass missions, like, it can't be that hard. Yeah, man, like that's 500% damage. Like, I feel like that's fine. Sure. Yeah, I say go for it. And again, we can add a little more range too. If that it would really make things that much better, then there's no reason there can't be a little more range. And you get to tornado people more for like actually accomplishing something. That's not so bad, right? It would be interesting to see if the Grimoire and Tornado have a positive synergy. In other words, if the Grimoire charges faster when it hits enemies, does shooting the Tornado, which echoes the damage to enemies in the Tornado, does that count as getting hits for the Grimoire on all those targets? I would predict no, but maybe. And so, you know, you could see. In any case, I don't know. I mean, I'm convinced. That's cool. Like, I can get down with that. So maybe Tailwind is the heat to beat was the expression that came to mind, which is vaguely disgusting in this context. So I don't know why that was what I felt the need to say. But yeah, I don't know. The duration of the damage buff should also be really good because we have high duration. Obviously. Yeah, that's cool. I don't know. I do not hate that. Oh, but being in the air with the spell casting from the book is very sexy too. Oh, the book looks pretty. It looks pretty cool when you're just sitting in the air, doesn't it? I like that. Ooh, I kind of like that. You just get in the air and just kind of sit there and do a little spell casting, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know, that's pretty, that's a whole mood, you know? Asymptomatic, you said, in my stables, the use cases have been Necros' Shield of Shadows and a theoretical horse in Petrify. Orgaze has an abysmal bonus loot chance of 25%, so when a frame who has room for Petrify on their 4th slot gets close to pure loot doubling. Worth it, maybe not, but the memes. Ah, yes, you're talking about reasons to use Precision Intensify for fun and profit. Yes, that's an interesting example. So most loot abilities in Warframe are not affected by strength, but Orgaze is. Petrify's Orgaze is. So you could use it on a Warframe you want to make more loot, and just put Petrify in the 4th slot. It is worth noting that most Warframes that have a loot increasing ability, it is their 4th ability, so that won't work. But Necros, it's his 3rd ability, so there you go. Cool. Yeah, I'm down with that. Asymptomatic, that's pretty spicy. I can get into that. Cool. It leaves you with Necros' 2nd ability, which some of you know is not my friend. But I don't know, that's a nice interaction. You have to not use Shield of Shadows and Shadows of the Dead, but well, and you could use it with Shield of Shadows too. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. That's cool. Anyway, lots of possibilities. Oh, you can kind of move while doing this too. I didn't know that. When you do Zephyr's hover. I don't know, I do like that. That is pretty nice. The aerial spell casting feels very nice indeed. And you can cast like other Zephyr stuff while in midair. Oh. Flying over the battlefield, carpet bombing enemies with your spell book, with high-speed spell waves. The Zephyr Helminth play is clearly Vile Rush for some sort of bomber cosplay. That actually sounds rad if I didn't know any better. I think the number of vials that Vile Rush generates is based on your range stat. So it's probably terrible in this build at the moment, but that sounds very fun, like while floating in midair. I'm definitely into that. Ninkandi Prime, great. Zephyr's really fitting in with the Shadow Wizard Money Gang. Ah, yes. And this fashion is a whole mood with the spellbook coming out too. Wonderful. I don't know, I'm really indecisive about Helminth abilities this time. I really like that you can get the value out of Airburst, and it has very good strength and duration, even without the range, because you have Tornado, which has like pretty good base range. I really like that. But at the same time, I like, I mean, you don't have to add a Helminth ability, but I really like to add one. There's lots of good possibilities. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't force it. I mean, if I don't want to add a Helminth ability, that's not bad to do that. We should definitely make a list of Warframes where I did not add a Helminth ability. Like I decided I would prefer to play them without adding another ability. That sounds worth doing. But I still think it's worth thinking about a little bit more. I'm just going to write that on the board as a thing to do. List of no Helminth builds, which I feel like it's going to be very few, but we'll see. Yeah, what would you add exactly? So there's a couple of conditions. I mean, we have low efficiency and range, so it doesn't mean we can't make those better, but we can't make them that much better without changing the whole build. And Jetstream and kind of Tornado don't really do anything without a good amount of duration, and Turbulence Jetstream doesn't do anything without strength. So yeah, like for this, you can make a different build. That's not bad. That's never bad to emphasize in these videos. You do not need to make this type of build. But if you're going to make a build that's appreciably doing this thing, we can't have the efficiency and range be really good. That's not the end of the world, but I think that's true. So something that doesn't rely on those, and we have high duration and strength, so that could be something to look at. We don't really need defenses, that doesn't really do anything. Damage bonus would be fine, but we have a way to do that without adding a Helminth ability from Airburst Rounds. So you could get a damage boosting ability, but I'm not sure that really accomplishes that much because we already have a way to do that. Energy generating, but because of the good duration, I don't think you need it that badly. Our energy is still kind of messed up, but there's a lot of options for that nowadays. Ragnavar, you said boring but relevant gloom might still be okay with your duration being good. Well, our range is really bad, but the range isn't terrible. We can certainly look at gloom. Yeah, and again, like, there's sort of two sides whenever we talk about Helminth abilities. There's the side of something that is good. Easy. Very easy. You can always pick plenty of abilities that are just good, but most of them are going to be pretty boring for a lot of people following this show, and that's fine. I don't think it's bad to mention them. They'll just be a starting point. We're not trying to find any Helminth ability that is good. We're never trying to find a Helminth ability that is good. That's always easy. It's a matter of finding one that is fun and good, which I'm just picky, so that's going to be hard. And for a lot of people, that might not be the case. They might say, hell yeah, let's use, Nourish, right? It's a damage boosting ability, but it provides an energy generation buff as well. Good fit. Like, that's good. It's a little boring to people that have made tons of builds, and that's a separate matter, but there's no two ways about it. It is good. You get more energy from drops. You buff your weapons with viral. Good. People have done Breach Surge with the tornadoes, but that's probably a different build. Yep, Breach Surge tends to be pretty good with anything that does like little bits of damage over time that feeds into itself. It will make kind of a not infinite, but very accelerating, powerful loop with Breach Surge. Another example is doing it with Garuda and Seeking Talons. So Breach Surge is a good option, but that is kind of a different build because you'd want range. Range would make it dramatically better. The default range is not so bad, but we were going to quickly check the range on Gloom if people did want to do that. It's not that good. That was my memory. It's kind of modest. The range is only 16 meters when fully expanded, so with half range, it's only going to be 8. You could add more range, but the range is rather modest. And because keeping enemies away from melee with Zephyr is kind of nice, I would kind of want more range than usual with this, not less. So I'm not that into Gloom here. I think Nourish is a legitimately mildly synergistic option. I'm just going to go further because it's my job to, and I like to, recommend weird stuff. But if you're looking for something good, a little synergistic, but maybe a little bit basic, I think Nourish is a great idea. And again, I think Breach Surge, while it's a different build here, and also for me, Garuda has kind of ate the lunch of most other users here. The Garuda Seeking Talons Breach Surge combo is so good that you can do it on other Warframes, but I have mentally categorized that as kind of her thing, I guess. Not bad to do it elsewhere. That sounds fun with Tornado, but let's look at Vile Rush briefly since it came up. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the number of charges, the number of vials on Vile Rush is based on your range, and therefore there will be very few on this build. But I feel like it would be quite funny if you were floating around airborne. I just love this ability generally, even though I feel like it's kind of bad outside of Lavos, where you can make multiple statuses on it. But anyway, I thought that was an amusing suggestion. Armor removal of some kind was suggested. Sure, you could. I mean, I value that less and less nowadays. I feel like there's just lots of ways to do enough damage, and so removing armor isn't as universally useful as it once was. But it's not bad. You could run, I don't know, something to remove armor. My brain is like, that's not interesting enough, but I don't care. Just give me examples of armor reduction. I don't know, but Fire Blast, yeah, I suppose. But the range, I was thinking of something that's like, is it Sonic Boom from Banshee? No, it's not. It's R2, isn't it? Theros Strike won't hit anything, probably. Yeah, no, because the range is not even good to begin with. Shuriken isn't his Helminth ability, I don't think. It is. Wow. This is bizarre with range. It doesn't say it has range, and I believe I remember Ash was my first Warframe. Did you all know that? Yes, it's very embarrassing that I bought like default Ash instead of Ash Prime, even though that would have been less platinum. But I did do that. When I was a senior in college, I finished my like capstone, was sort of thesis project, if you want to think of it that way. I wrote a novel. That was mine because I was a creative writing major, English major. And I played a ton of Warframe while none of my friends were free because I finished my work really early. And I had a ton of friends all around me that were not free, and it was really depressing, so I started playing Warframe, and I played a ton of Warframe, and I purchased Ash with Platinum, which is sort of stupid, but I did do that. And I used Akbronco Prime was my first Prime, and I spammed Shuriken and shot Akbronco Prime at people, and that was my whole thing. And I thought Akbronco Prime was really good because it doesn't run out of ammo. And so what you'll notice about that is that I'm an idiot man because nothing in Warframe runs out of ammo, especially back then, right? Like 5 or 6 years ago. That's by the by. Shuriken is an ability I have used a lot of times in my time playing Warframe. And, I don't think it has range that it's attached to. Just because it doesn't say it in the tooltip doesn't mean it doesn't have any, but I think it doesn't. It has like light homing at a few targets. This is a one-handed action, which means you can do it while shooting a weapon. And it has an augment that makes it remove armor. Not all of armor with no strength, but you don't need much strength to make it remove all armor. This is one of the simplest, like, you just add it to your weapon shots, armor reduction abilities. However, it is only 2 targets for 25 energy without efficiency problems. And we do have efficiency problems. I think this is actually a rather bad armor removal ability if you have low or anything but high efficiency, because it's very energy inefficient to remove armor this way. If you have a ton of energy or efficiency, it's not a big deal. But if that's a problem, I actually think this is bad enough at that it isn't a great option. But it is an option nevertheless, which is what I asked for, so full credit. Pillage, interesting. It has the defensive benefit that doesn't really do anything on this loadout because we have Jetstream already. And also the armor reduction is not amazing, but we do have a lot of strength, so it's a status cleanse, which you might want, right? Yeah, Pillage sort of makes sense. For someone who was looking at this loadout so far and thought, I don't want no defensive measures, I feel like this is almost the perfect solution. You get the armor reduction, if you care about that, you get the status cleanse, and then you actually get a lot of overshields as another layer of defense. There's someone out there for whom this is the perfect Helminth ability, but it's not me. I don't know, the Shuriken is growing on me though, because if we did have the efficiency, we might just fix the efficiency. If you had the efficiency, the way you throw Shuriken, you go like this, and then with the Grimoire, you kind of like cast them out of the Grimoire. I feel like it will look very satisfying. I kind of love this. I'm sort of getting into this one. Oh yeah, I might want that. Kalroga, you also asked earlier something that we haven't really gotten into, which is what stat to get from the Grimoire. Let's just look at that briefly. You can get all of the main stats, so strength, efficiency, duration, etc. So we can look at that. You can see it says you get ability efficiency from the alt fire hitting enemies. It stacks up to 15 times, and it's a 20-second duration. So unless you're quick, you may not get more than like 2-ish uses of this, I think. which means that while it can give you 60% efficiency, I doubt it will very often. I don't think that's that realistic. But 30% is like 7 or 8 hits. That's good. That's a lot. 30% efficiency is a lot. So we can kind of rebuff the efficiency a little bit. And I could always lower the rank of Blind Rage. Like I could just make Blind Rage more subtle. Yeah. That's a thing, potentially. Yeah, I don't know. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, we do have grouping. I just think 15 is still greedy, or more to the point, if it gives 60% efficiency, that's obviously very good. So I would rather assume we won't get the best case scenario. You saw in that previous mission, you can group enemies up, but if you're in co-op, you are not going to group up 15 enemies normally, unless your allies are AFK. I think you'll get 4 to 7 is more realistic. That was what I got when I tried. So you decide for yourself, but I don't think you're going to get 15, grouping or no. Yeah. The forbidden spaghetti, I don't know what that is, allows things like operator scaffolds builds or to maintain invocations. I don't know what you mean, I'm sorry. But if there's a way to stretch out the buff, that would be nice. Or, 20 seconds, maybe I'm getting a little bit too shy. If additional stacks from hits from the Allfire refresh the duration on that invocation mod for the Grimoire, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's easier to get the stacks than I think it is. I don't know. I kind of like Shuriken. Like, I sort of want to try that. But then I want the first ability to hover in midair. But one could just use aim glide mods. Pistol Whip, welcome back, Pistol Whip, by the way. You said it should be noted that without projectile speed, the Grimoire Altfire travels slowly enough to get multiple hits on a given enemy in some cases. With bonus projectile speed, you would probably need to get more enemies together. Interesting, we found a potential anti-synergy. It does travel very slowly, so if it ticks, which is what it sounds like you're saying, you could get multiple stacks from a single target. So this build might actually get you less stacks. Interesting. I'm going to write that down as a note. There might be some maybe anti-synergy with Altfire, though. Faster equals less multi-hits on single targets. That's troubling, potentially. Oh, Ace, you're trying to say the Grimoire's buff can be stacked and refreshed by the operator, which sounds not correct philosophically. Yeah, that's almost certainly a bug that will get removed at some point. It sounds like you're saying operators just attacking stuff gives you Grimoire stacks. That's super not. I'm not going to recommend doing that, but it's perfectly fine if you do. It's a very different situation for me making a video. So I don't know. I like the Grimoire idea, and it kind of fits. I don't know. It gives you a lot of outs to some of this build's issues. And the thing about the efficiency is the build is set up in such a way that you don't need it. But then if you want to do a whole spree of casting a lot of airbursts, and if you do shuriken, then you'll be using the Grimoire, and then that stacks up the efficiency so you can do that. And then you don't have the efficiency when you don't need it. You're just running around refreshing Turbulence and stuff. I kind of like that idea of having a build where you have a more involved gameplay loop when you want it. You throw a bunch of shurikens and airbursts and stuff. But then when you don't care about that, you can just be effective and do the thing. You can do Turbulence, Tornado. That's a whole area of making builds that I would like to explore further. The idea that you maybe don't always want to be at full blast, and sometimes you want to relax and have the build just work, but then other times you want something more involved. I'm very into that. That really appeals to me. So I guess if I wanted that, what I would do is remove Tailwind for Shuriken, and then add aim glide mods so that you're floating by just aim gliding normally. That's fine. Tailwind does feel kind of nice, But I mean, literally just floating in midair is not much for one ability slot. You really can do that without having an ability on your Warframe. You really do not need Tailwind to just make you float in midair. So yeah, I'll probably get rid of it. The mod that comes to mind is Aerodynamic. 6 seconds of aim glide and wall latch duration, and you do take less damage while airborne. Doesn't really matter in this case. There are a lot of ways to help you float. I don't know how many of them can apply here. So MOAs have that tractor beam mod that will let you float, but if you do that, then your companion shooting the Helstrum won't be on your shoulder, so they won't be affected by Jetstream. Kit guns. The primary could be a kit gun. I don't remember how the floaty kit gun mod works with... do you get the aim glide and wall latch duration even if you are not... if you don't have that gun out? You see what I mean? Let's check. That's easy to check. So let's do that. And then we gotta wind down. Willow writes, you said, is Angstrom Incarnon mode affected by Zephyr's 3? I don't have the Incarnon adapter for the Angstrom, so I don't have any idea what it does. But I will say that when we tested the Angstrom before, it looked like it had a pretty weird interaction with the projectile flight speed. Like, the spread of rockets looked to me like it should get tighter if you increase the flight speed, but it didn't. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I forgot I made this thing. So this is a machine gun version of the Archiplasmor, making it have very long ranges. Very nice. Very nice. Oh yes. That's pretty satisfying, ain't it? Okay, anyway, stay focused. We need the aim glide. So yeah, we're getting it from Paxor. Do you still get it when you don't have that gun out? Let's make sure it regenerated. Your aim glide wall latch duration is a regenerating bar that is not visible, because it's like stamina in a lot of games, for example. So we should be able to aim glide for like 6-ish seconds if it's applying. No. So it looks like the Paxor only affects when you are holding the weapon that it is on, which makes sense. I just wanted to check. So good idea, but no dice. If you want to use the Grimoire anyway, no dice. Ragnavar, you said you want this. Sure. It's note that I do have a little bit of fire rate, is partly why it's shooting so fast, but not that much. Critical deceleration, and then just Amalgam Shotgun Barrage. And then let's see, the parts are Macrothymoid, Brash, and Catch Moon, of course. Probably the fastest grip, the biggest loader, I would imagine. Macrothymoid might be like big-ish loader, but has good supplementary stats. I sort of forget. That sounds like what I would pick. And then Catch Moon. Yes, it is a lot of fun. The drawback of this weapon is that Macrothymoid are like the big capacity loaders, right? Catch Moon has pretty small magazine size. So if you want to be able to fire full auto for a long time, you need a big loader, but they're not that big, and the big ones give you long reload speed. So the problem with this weapon is that the active firing time, that is the amount of the time using the weapon, if you fire it nonstop, that you are actually shooting for, it's really bad. Like, it's not good. It's like close to only 50%. You can see that if you just shoot constantly, you have to spend like almost a third of the time reloading. So it's really bad. So if you're going to use this weapon, I would highly recommend finding a Warframe or a build around it that increases the reload speed and or the magazine size, probably the reload speed, quite substantially. No bad thing, really. You can just run it on like Toxin Chroma or Volt or Gauss or whatever, and you'll be right as rain. The reload isn't so long, but it is somewhat long, right? So if you like this, my recommendation is use a reload speed warframe. Or Helminth Toxin Chroma, Toxin Elemental Ward. Does the Recharge Arcane help / work? I will show you if you want, but I doubt that will be that good. So it starts recharging after 1.3 seconds, and it took that long to get the whole magazine back, so I don't think that's good. I think the recharge thing, what makes the recharge good is arcane. / I feel like it's gotten worse recently, but that might be wrong. Anyway. A delightful weapon, but I would definitely investigate doing something about the reload. It's kind of bad. Do note that how slow it was before was also with Primary Merciless to make the reload speed like less bad. It's not so bad, it's just, again, the time you're shooting is kind of slow, and it has an average reload, which ends up being kind of by, and it has chilling reload as well, yep. So it's pretty long. Again, I would strongly recommend just don't faff about with all of that, go get a reload speed warframe. Thank you for your interest in my kit gun. As all of you know, I love kit guns and saws. I haven't spent that much time with this content in a while, but I love them, and so a lot of the ones I have, I put a lot of effort into making something really fun that doesn't exist in the game previously. Like, it's not just a kit gun version of this gun that does exist. A Gatling gun speed Archiplasmor is something I thought a lot of people would enjoy, so I'm very happy you like it. Yeah, I mean, you can increase the range here, but as you've been seeing, the range isn't that bad. The other reason the range isn't that bad is because primary shotguns have galvanized acceleration, which is a pretty good projectile flight speed mod already. 30%, and then it stacks 30% 2 more times on kill. So in some ways, shotguns are the least beneficiaries of Zephyr's Jetstream because they have the best option for gaining projectile speed besides Zephyr's Jetstream in the entire game. But anyway, on this build, personally, it's kind of a no from me. But I'm super into the whole Grimoire thing. Anyway, I'm gonna add Shuriken, and that'll be most of our show, I think. We'll just play it once, but then I gotta go. We went overtime by a little bit, but what can you do? Ragnavar, we did play with the Corinth's Airburst a little bit earlier in the stream, and it does fire very quickly. It does move very fast. So unless you're ready to explode it very early, it will probably hit a wall or something before you get the chance to blow it up. My 2 cents is it's not very good with the flight speed. It is affected by it, but I don't think you'll be all that happy with the results. Maybe, but like most hitscan shotguns, the flight time is fairly effective because it makes them do their full damage up to further range. So not necessarily bad, but the secondary fire, I don't know, it becomes kind of hard to use, in my opinion. Ooh, nice. Asymptomatic, you said you were looking at the parts for the kit gun and you think another loader might be nicer. Let's take a look. I'm interested, of course, in my beloved rapid fire. Let's take a gander. Real quick. So Catchmoon plus I did Brash, which is the speedy one for a primary. Fastest one for primaries, I believe, anyway. Oh, Gibber, no, is more rate of fire. It's probably something to do with the relative, we'll talk about that in a sec. And then I had macrothymoid on mine, gilded. 23 magazine size. The reload is really long. Gibber is secondary. Brash is the fastest primary. Okay. 23 magazine size, 2.9 reload speed, versus you can go Archroid or Macro Archroid? Macro Archroid, probably. 39 magazine, up from 23. Huge increase. It's almost double. For only 0.2 more seconds of reload. You do lose a little bit of supplementary stats, if I recall. Let's look at how much. Oh, only 3% crit and status. Hell yeah, do Macro Archroid. That's better. Yeah, I think. You only lose 3% crit and status chance. You almost double the magazine size. And you barely gain any reload. It's still slow, but you don't lose much reload speed. Yeah, do Macro Archroid instead. I agree. I guess apparently Past Zandy didn't agree, but I think this is better. I might even remake it. That's a fairly substantial magazine size increase. Yeah. But again, the reason I had picked Macrothymoid on mine is because I guess I valued the increased crit and status more. I really don't. I mean, you're going to be able to shoot so many more times. It's going to be more crit and status in practice. I would really recommend Macro Archroid instead. That's Macro Archroid is a whole mouthful. Sounds good to me. In fact, I really might remake that if I have the resources. My partner has been playing a lot of the open worlds as well, so I might just be able to get them while playing normally. I'm into that. Yep. Cool. What was I gonna do besides just try the shuriken thing? Let's finish modding. So I'll take Seeking Shuriken. So the shurikens remove all enemy armor. It's affected by strength. A nice thing is that because we have a lot of duration, the armor strip is long. Not normally necessary. Like, it's fine if you just throw the shuriken and then kill the enemy immediately. But, I mean, we didn't build the duration for the armor strip, so it just happens that we can remove armor for 18 seconds. It might save you casts of shuriken, potentially, against, like, tankier enemies or something. I don't know. Not a big deal, but it's not so bad. We have good strength. They do a slash status. I don't know. And then Airburst Rounds I'm going to keep. The efficiency is kind of bad, but we have an arcane slot to do like whatever with. We might not have that much time to get into that, but I would like to in theory. Let me note down, we did Jetstream Helstrum from my board. I want to note down making Macro Archroid. Macro Archroid. Catchmoon. That's illegible handwriting disorder level writing, but I do have a handwriting disorder, so there you go. That's bad. $30 energy, oof. 30 energy for an instant rather than a lingering enchantment makes me wince just a bit. Asymptomatic, I like your Magic the Gathering card type metaphor for this ability. Indeed, I think what you're getting at is that 30 energy, while not super high, I mean, we're nearing the amount of energy that you would get like an armor reduction aura or something similar, where enemies just in your presence had less or no armor. Paying that much for like just 2 targets lose all armor, that's expensive. Looking at a way to regenerate energy is not so bad here. There's a few options for arcanes. You can, if you want to spam stuff, we do have Arcane Steadfast. It says at full rank, on ability cast, 20% chance that the next 3 abilities will not cost energy. I think this is sort of good, but also not amazing in this particular build. This is probably at its best when you have a cheap ability you spam, and then expensive abilities you would want to use now and again. You can do that here. You can spam Shuriken, and when it triggers this, you can take the opportunity to do Tornado, Turbulence, and then Airburst Rounds, refresh. that will save you a lot of energy, potentially. This is not a bad use case for this. But I wonder whether you will be able to spam Shuriken at 30 energy often enough that you'll get this effect, you know what I mean? I'm kind of into it. That's a nice idea. But yeah, like Energize is a perfectly sensible option too. I'm into trying Arcane Steadfast though. That's cool. I have Xeneric Focus right now. If you spend a lot of time floating in midair, it might be sort of inconvenient, but what can you do? And right now, I don't have the Aura Forma to give myself Aim Glide and Wall Latch time. I was planning to get that from Aerodynamic, you'll remember. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what I would say about Shuriken is that for me, this is an ability I have a soft spot for. But as we've been discussing a little bit, it's not amazing as a way to remove armor unless it's really, really cheap, or you have like an interaction with using an ability really often. That could be good potentially. But I don't know. This is not terrible. Oh, another option for getting height is anti-grav array. Sure, I'm not a fan, but it is a good suggestion. Some of the time, this will result in you being airborne more. So I think that's worth mentioning. Pistol Whip. I'm not super into it. To me, this really messes up my memory about maps. You know, like I'm used to jumping a certain height on a map, and I mess that up constantly with this. So I avoid this mod mostly, but that is a good suggestion. I'm just an idiot and jump into the ceiling of the map all the time. But what can you do? Now, quickly, just a few things about the Grimoire build if you're going to do all of this. Because Airburst Rounds gives you secondary, like, base damage, as far as I can tell, quite an enormous amount, the benefit of getting further base damage is very low on the Grimoire with this particular setup. So I would recommend removing base damage stuff, probably even from the arcane as well. Like a utility arcane really comes to mind. Something like Secondary Shiver, interesting. Cascadia Flare, but that's probably base damage too, isn't it? I'm sort of into Secondary Shiver, though you'd have to build cold on the weapon. It does have innate electricity, so you can do conjunction voltage. It doesn't have reload speed, but it gets multi-shot. I'm kind of interested in Shiver. Let me see what else is there. Yeah. I think I'm going to go for Shiver for me. But I've got to get, like, old on there, so I'm just going to remind myself. And I'm also not sure about Croc Canticle. Let's quickly look at that. So the options for Canticles, we're going to assume that you have to kill with the Tome. We have Foss or Fast Canticle. Killing enemies grants allies in affinity range, basically shield regen speed. Not that into it. Doesn't really benefit Zephyr in this case very much. You probably just won't get shot. Killing enemies reduces the armor and shields of other enemies within affinity range by 5%. Oh, a better way to remove all of the armor and shields from enemies in affinity range than spamming Shuriken a lot. So that's definitely an option, but evidently with this approach, I'm not going to take that. Fire rate, I think, would be very nice here. Right now we have Universal Orb, but the energy, it's its own problem, and then the health is not going to be relevant. So I think I would go for the fire rate with this version of the build, but I'm quite keen to maybe just skip Shuriken and use Jahu Canticle instead. I'm going to put that in my notes as well. But I would have to have a Helminth ability I wanted more, so. And then, yeah, because you, if you're going to drop Hornet Strike as well, which I was recommending, if you're going to get the damage from using Airburst Rounds, I would probably bring Lethal Torrent. If more hits gives you more charge for the alternate fire of this weapon, that's great. More multi-shot, even though it's not that much more multi-shot, but it's more upfront. And the fire rate is relevant. It's most of a fire rate mod, and you get some bonus multi-shot. So I think in theory that's quite good. This mod is normally a little on the weak side at the moment in Warframe, in my opinion, just because you get so much from Galvanized Diffusion. When this is stacked up, this isn't giving you much more multi-shot in context. You have, you know, what, 30%, and you get 60% more. But it does give 60% fire rate, so I think when the multi-shot has some special benefit, it's kind of nice. If you were to run a full fire rate mod, like it's, what's it called on these weapons? Anemic Agility. You only get 30% more fire rate, so I think this is a nice place for Lethal Torrent. Cool. It's probably going to feel a lot better with some attack speed too. Slow ass weapon. Cool. Looking forward to it. Let's just give it a quick play, and then that'll be the show. This is already, that was like the least useful timestamp of all time because it's super long, but we were just talking about builds the whole time. What are you going to do? I'll just do some random. We'll do this mobile defense again. How about that? Because I want to see it against enemies that could actually take all the damage. Remember, I don't have a fully built grimoire, but we're just taking a look. Lycat's Hunt is a range-agnostic energy economy aid. Yeah, I would be interested in that. That's a great suggestion. I'll write that in my notes, but if I miss it before the end of the stream, we can quickly look at that if you remind me. Just to show you what the floaty gameplay loop would be like. We're throwing all this stuff. It's like that meme with the dealing all the cards really fast. That's my meme abilities. In fact, yeah, no, that's what it's going to look like anyway. That's good enough for me. We don't have time. I'm already supposed to have finished, so let's finish up. My partner's going to get go on the Hanger rampage, and rightly so, as well she should. Angry shower noises, yes. Let's look at Lycat's Hunt really quick. Yes, there's a chance for enemies killed by melee attacks to drop health orbs, and enemies killed by headshots to drop energy orbs, and you increase the duration of the effect by killing enemies affected by 5 or more status effects. This seems like a really good loadout for this, actually, to me. The damage from the Grimoire is going to do probably 2. You know, it's got electricity, and then you build, like, whatever else on it. And then your companion with the Helstrum with Turbulence, Jetstream, is going to carpet bomb enemies with statuses. That does 5 almost all by itself. I think this is a really good fit for this loadout. That's really nice. In fact, enough that I think I'm just going to swap to that right now. I really like that. I think that's a great idea. It's an elegant way to help the energy economy as well. I feel like Lycat's Hunt is also quite narrow. You know what I mean? Like it's not a very general use option. So I'm very happy to use it somewhere. I just want variety. It's not because it's any better to use niche things. I'm going to be making like dozens of builds, so I will often favor the variety. But I would hate for people, I'm trying to be more careful about, I would hate for people to watch these streams and think it's bad to take something obviously good. It's not. If that helps you have fun, that's great. If it makes you have less fun because you're sick of taking the same option, that's also okay. I just don't want people to feel like it's better to take something hipster and unique just for its own sake. It's only better if that helps you have more fun. But it does help me have more fun. How is this affected by your stats? Oh, duration. Okay, yeah, that's good. It's 93 energy. Holy shit. Okay. That's kind of a lot. Arcane Steadfast isn't that good either in this case. I suppose Energize would be good here, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. One thing we did accomplish with Lycat's Hunt is free up a slot for something. But yeah. Anyway, and now because I removed Shuriken for the armor reduction, I'm quite keen on Jahu Canticle. Just killing enemies steadily removes armor and shields from enemies within affinity range. That's nuts. Think about that. You kill like 4 or 5 enemies, and you just like corrosive projection the entire map. Like, I think this is really good. It's only not good if you don't use the Grimoire like a lot. It will end up not adding up. But I feel like if you get a kill against a good group of enemies, this means enemies have like half of the armor they normally have. I feel like this is really good. That's really powerful, I think. It just sounds kind of fun too. Like, I like that enemies would become weaker and weaker. It feels like a spell as well. You know what I mean? Like, you get a bit of that spell casting flavor. That's neat. A skin for the book for maximum Zephyr Harrier skin gaming. I think so. I have platinum right now that I can only use to buy stuff from the shop. Like, it's not tradable. So I literally have to buy skins and stuff or it's useless. So I actually will buy that. Thank you. It's time to duel. That's glorious. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Beautiful. What a weird appearance. Sometimes in the Warframe streams we do a fashion section, but I think we've well and truly done a good bit of that today. I'm definitely going to change what's on the shoulder armor slot. I really like the Imugi legs with this skin. That looks cool. Here's what the legs look like without that. Perfectly fine, but I think the Imugi plates fit very nicely. I'll probably fiddle with the colors a little, but I love this kind of like bronzy gold, kind of dirty gold thing. It's a little bit green. It's on the Twilight palette if you want that color. I really like that gold here. It looks nice, doesn't it? Very nice. Big thing is the shoulders. I just need to pick something else. But we've gone way over time and well and truly done a lot of stuff. So I hope you had fun. I had a pretty good time. What a spicy build. Did not expect the flying spellcaster, the Witch of the West, Zephyr. Do we have a name, by the way, for the flying spellcaster Zephyr? Zephyr Witch build is like almost not even bad. Witch Zephyr. But truthfully, it's going to take some time just naming builds more. We're gonna have to get into a whole discussion about build names. You could easily do a whole video or a whole video series on that, and I intend to. I have for a long time been kind of a stick in the mud about, and it's worth a topic briefly, build names and the etymology of naming builds. The reason I didn't like them is because they're exclusive. They're a thing where you add words to the thing you're doing, but it doesn't help people understand what it is, like, unless they already know what it is, you know? What I don't like is when people in a community have decided that because they know what the specific build name means, they'll refer to a thing and say, oh, it's the witch build for Zephyr. Like, there is no the single witch build. In the first place, if we call it Witch Zephyr, we didn't settle on a single build. Like, there is no the build for a certain thing. Or people say, like, the energy vampire build for Trinity. There is no single agreed upon energy vampire build for Trinity. And even though there kind of is, people use negative duration because it makes the pulses tick faster. Oftentimes doing that makes people not understand why people suggest doing that. It kind of doesn't do all that much unless you plan to not kill the enemy, which is a holdover from a time when Warframe had raids and there was a reason not to kill the enemy spawns, but you don't really need to do that right now. It doesn't matter. So I don't really like build names for that reason. I think that they make people understand builds less, and they're kind of forced to just say, what is that? And then the person says one thing and they copy that one thing and the build is the least interesting it could be. But I've accepted what all of you have said, which is that people who are going to do that are just going to do that, and there's nothing we can do. Let's just forget about it, you know? And I think build names are also useful and fun. They help you organize, like, what build concept are we referring to? If you have already thought about, like, it's not one single build, you need to adapt it to your own playstyle, whatever, then it does help, like, people who will actually think about it organize, right? And they're fun. They can be kind of fun. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting to the worst case scenario. And so let's try it. I've decided for now anyway, I'm perfectly willing to just give it a go. Magic Missile Zephyr sounds cool. That is kind of cool. Magic Missile Zephyr, Magic Missile Mage Zephyr. I'm kind of into that more. Yeah, the witch thing doesn't, there's nothing witchy about it. Magic Missile or some variant of that Zephyr sounds neat. Oh, and we kind of have the magic missiles from the Helstrum. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. Ooh, very spicy. It is like Magic Missile Zephyr. You got the magic, you got the missiles. They have kind of the homing from Magic Missile and Dungeons and Dragons. Ooh, very sexy names, chat. Shadow Wizard Money Zephyr. Ah, yes, Shadow Money. Glorious. And if you bring the Penta, you've kind of got the rocket as well. Ooh, I'm very into Magic Missile Zephyr. I think that one wins. That's wonderful. Maybe you should give your builds modern light novel names, where the name is a very long run-on sentence that explains every unique aspect of the build. That time I reincarnated as a slime, for example. The Zephyr build where you use Jetstream Turbulence to increase the fall-off range of shotguns. Like, that's it. Beautiful. You could do that in the thumbnail. That's a fun idea. I might do that. Light novel ass name that explains everything in the thumbnail. It's gonna make the thumbnail look like shit, but I mean, it was already gonna look like shit. I will definitely think about that. That's fun. Okay, I gotta go. Good job, chat. Excellent stream. I think we can all agree we did a very good job. I think I'm gonna do the light novel thing in the title because it legitimately accomplishes something too. Like, that's actually a good idea. It's kind of stupid, but it would make the video better. Like, it would say, I'm totally doing that. I don't know what. We'll see how it goes. Have a good one, folks. If you enjoyed this, we do this time every week. But this is my last regular stream of the year. So I will see you in 2024 for Thursday streams where we make builds on Thursdays in Warframe. We will be streaming tomorrow as usual. We'll be doing the new Mirror Dungeon 2 hard mode in Limbus Company. It's hard. I'm somewhat excited personally. And there's quite a few new twists to this Mirror Dungeon. So we're doing that tomorrow as usual. And then I wanted to do like kind of a wrap stream. We actually do have to pause for just a second to talk about that. I wanted to do kind of like a yearly wrap-up stream, but I had said I was going to break after Christmas this year, and I don't want to break that. I committed to doing that. Is it too awkward to have a little celebration at the very beginning of 2024 instead of cramming it in at the end of 2023? Is that okay? Are you okay with celebrating 2023 on like January 1st, 2nd or something of 2024? If it really means a lot to you for it to be this year, we could do it like the day after Christmas, for example. What do you think? You got two options. It might not be these exact days, but we can do December 26th or January 2nd. What day is January 2nd? Should it be a day we normally stream? Let's look at a 2024 calendar for 1 second. Oh God, I made the great mistake of typing just the word 2024 and nothing else into Google and was immediately bombarded with doomer levels of doom scrolling content from the news. Do not be an idiot like me and make that mistake. Okay, what are the dates in 2024? The 2nd is a Tuesday. Let's do it a day we would normally stream. What do you think about doing, let's do like the 5th or something. Let's say it'll be like the 5th. And not worry about the exact day, or I'll finalize it when we get to 2024. So just quick recap. Sorry for the scheduling thing. It's important to ask you all what you'd like. Tomorrow, last stream of 2024, we're going to do the new Mirror Dungeon hard mode in Limbus Company. Good way to end the year of streaming, because that's probably my favorite addition to the stream this year. Limbus Company Mirror Dungeons every week have been an incredible treat every week. So I'm very happy that is how it's capping down the year. Next year, January 1st is a Monday, but we will not do the normal Monday stream on January 1st. I will plan to start streaming January 4th or 5th, which are like 2 Thursdays, 2 Fridays from now. How about that? I will be taking an actual break. I promised the people in my personal life for at least the last week of December and hopefully most of the first week of January as well. So I think that would be a great time, January 4th or 5th. So I'll see you all tomorrow or then. Thanks for the stream. Well done. I thought it was a very fun one. Talk to you soon.